Chapter 310. Demi still looked the same as when Jingtan saw it at the cat show. It still did not have much of an expression and seemed to be indifferent to the people and things around it. Only when it looked over did its eyes widen a little and its pupils dilate a little. This made it look a little less sharp than usual. As for Xiaomi, this was the first time Jingtan saw it after it was taken away. The pattern in his impression and the mole that was the same as its father's made Jingtan recognize these two features. Unlike Demi, this was the first time Xiaomi saw Jingtan after it left. When it looked at Jingtan, it was a little confused. Jingtan did not know if this guy still remembered him. Xiaomi's line of sight followed Jingtan. It probably felt that the space was too small, so it squeezed Demi beside it. Demi slapped its head, but it did not care. It continued to squeeze and its head was slapped again. The two cats were squeezed by the car window, so Jingtan could not enter. It was the driver in front who called out to Jingtan and jumped in through the front window. Jingtan had never seen the driver before, but from his conversation with Charlie, he knew that this was the person that Feng Xiaokong mentioned to take care of the cats in Beijing. Since they had informed him in advance, Charlie was relieved. After watching the car leave, Charlie reported Jingtan's whereabouts to the people in Chuhua City. This was what his boss, Xiaogua, and Professor Jiao had instructed him to do. On the other side, Jingtan, who had jumped into the car, sat in the front passenger seat. Fang Mengmeng and the two cats were in the back seat. There was another person that he did not know. She was sent by Fang Mengmeng's mother to take care of the children and cats. Jingtan noticed that Xiaomi was wearing a leash, and the other end of the leash was in the hands of the woman that Jingtan did not know. Xiaomi's cat tag was hung on a buckle of the leash. It was made quite delicately. The leash even went under Xiaomi's forearm so that the cat's neck would not bear all the force when the leash was pulled. However, most of the cats that used this kind of leash were more active. Demi was not like that. Just as Jingtan had guessed, Xiaomi was prone to hyperactivity. It was completely different from Demi's calm and steady nature. After Jingtan got into the car, little Me was very curious at first. From time to time, she would get close to him and sniff. It was unknown whether she had remembered or felt that Jingtan was not a threat, but she kept walking around. She even raised her paw to touch Jingtan. She kept moving around in the back seat until Fang Mengmeng forcefully pressed her against the car seat. Even though she was lying down, Xiaomi didn't stay idle. She rubbed around and played around, wagging her tail. Who did she take after? Even peanut candy wasn't like this back then, right? Another thing that made Jingtan unhappy was the difference in size. From Jingtan's point of view, peanut candy was 1 generation younger than him, and Big Rice and Little Rice were 1 generation younger. Standing beside these two juniors, Jingtan had to look up to them. After arriving at Fang Mengmeng's house, Jingtan realized that he had underestimated Xiaomi. Jingtan lay on the sofa and watched Xiaomi play with a tennis ball all over the house. From time to time, she would provoke Jingtan, who was on the sofa, and Demi, who was on the cat tree. Then, she would be slapped by the two of them. She never got tired of it. He didn't know if she would get into trouble during the filming. However, those were the worries of Yang Yi and the filming crew. Jingtan didn't think about it anymore. Fang Mengmeng took many photos of Jingtan, Demi, and Xiaomi with her camera. Demi was already used to it, and Xiaomi didn't seem to care about the camera. Sometimes, she would curiously move closer to the camera and take a few photos of her big nose. The mole beside her mouth was especially obvious. Jingtan didn't stay at Fang Mengmeng's house for long. The next day, Yang Yi drove over to pick him up. The filming crew didn't have much free time. There were many areas that needed to be adjusted. Yang Yi had placed a lot of hope on Jingtan. Many people said that documentaries were the eldest son of movies and the poor brother of feature films. Just as Jingtan knew, not every documentary could be recognized by the public. Most of the documentaries were shelved. Many people had never heard of the title of the film. Even if they had heard of it, they wouldn't be interested in watching it. Many people were also not optimistic about the film that Yang Yi had spent so much effort on. Of all the things to film, why did he choose to film a documentary? He might as well use that money to film some celebrity commercials. Regarding this, Yang Yi didn't care at all. Zheng Tan wasn't a Beijing cat. Since he wanted to tell the story of a Beijing cat, these stories definitely wouldn't be the real Zheng Tan. Authenticity was the essential attribute of a documentary. It recorded objective things so that the audience would have a more realistic experience. Therefore, Yang Yi wouldn't make up nonsense, and he wouldn't let Zheng Tan act in those fake stories. Zheng Tan wanted to act in something that used to be real. In other words, Zheng Tan wanted to act in another cat that was no longer in this world. He had to change the location and the mentality. Compared to 20 or 30 years ago, the current Beijing had changed a lot. The scenes and things in Yang Yi's memory couldn't be recreated as they were. Therefore, this involved a method of using scientific and technological means to create a virtual reality. Of course, virtual didn't mean that the story was real. The scenes and things created by scientific and technological means were also real and had historical basis. Therefore, some parts of the documentary needed to use a combination of virtual and real shooting techniques to recreate the real story. Humans had the ability to recreate the past. Those past events were scenes that existed in Yang Yi's memory. Yang Yi said that he wanted to achieve a resonance in terms of thinking. Zheng Tan felt a bit of pressure. Whether it was the lineup or the atmosphere, it was very different from Xiaoguo's studio. During the shooting process, the focus was on the control of the light ratio to improve the visual effect of the image. Therefore, the technical level of the camera and the cameraman was higher. The cameraman had to adjust the light ratio to ensure the beauty of the image, so that the filmed content could be shown to the public at the most beautiful angle. The advanced shooting equipment and the skillful cameraman showed the importance Yang Yi attached to this documentary from these two aspects. The post-production requirements for the technical processing of the image were also high. They had to be able to ensure the authenticity of the filmed content and modify the image to enhance the visual effect. This required the relevant filming technicians to have strong technical skills. Sure enough, there was a big difference between filming a pet commercial and this kind of documentary. No wonder Xiaoguo had been nervous before, and even Charlie had been nagging at the side for fear of causing trouble. Yang Yi, Charlie, and the rest of the team sent to Beijing by Xiaoguo talked about the next few scenes to shoot, how to walk, where to look, how to bark, and so on. Zheng Tan listened at the side. The old man who acted with Zheng Tan and many people in the filming crew did not understand Yang Yi's approach. At the beginning, when they knew that Yang Yi wanted to shoot this documentary, they knew that it would be very difficult. People were easy to deal with, but cats were notoriously difficult to deal with, much more difficult to deal with than dogs. Looking at the proportion of dogs and cats in the movies so far, one would know. One would not know how difficult it was to deal with cats if they had not filmed it before. Therefore, they felt that Yang Yi was still too young and naive to think about things too simply. Yang Yi also knew what others would think, but what he learned from Xiaoguo and Professor Jiao, as well as what he saw with his own eyes at the filming site at the pet center, made him have high expectations for this cat. This involved the story of his grandfather, and the significance of the film itself was great, even if it was not a big production movie and was only a documentary that many people did not think highly of. Every time Yang Yi filmed an animal, he liked to guess the animal's mood by looking at the animal's eyes that were fixed in the photo. Compared to humans, animals were more eye-catching. In fact, most of the time, an animal's gaze could instantly kill the celebrities on TV. It was not that they performed better than the celebrities, but it was how much of an impact their gaze would bring to the people who saw it. Those who loved pets sometimes, even if their pets did something wrong, they would be prepared to reprimand them, but when faced with the pet's coquettish or pitiful eyes, they would abandon their armor. The eyes of animals were also filled with emotions. Although it was a documentary, there were still some things that had to be done, especially Zheng Tan, who was acting the life of another cat. Before shooting, Zheng Tan had to do makeup. Yes, makeup. This was something that had been discussed before. Yang Yi's grandfather had once reared a cat that wasn't pure black. That cat had 3 white legs and 1 black leg. There was a small white dot on its nose and an inverted triangle on its chin. Compared to the sheriff, the proportion of white on its body wasn't much. Jing Tan had seen the photo that Yang Yi took out. As for the dye, Yang Yi specially got it. It was said that it was harmless, edible, and could be washed off. For this reason, Jiao Pa specially took some for testing. After getting the results, he agreed. Before this, Jing Tan had always thought that dyeing was an easy task, but when it came to makeup, he realized that it was not so. The makeup artist that Yang Yi hired was too conscientious and meticulous. Of course, the effect was also very good. Jing Tan was guaranteed that many people would not recognize him if he went out now. Most people recognized animals by their color at first sight. A little white would change a lot, and the all-black aura would be reduced. Charlie held the mirror for Jing Tan to look at. Jing Tan was satisfied with the rest. At first glance, he did not see any makeup. The only depressing thing was the little white spot under the nose. Jing Tan now felt that peanut candy and Xiaomi's mole were not bad. At least, it was better than Jing Tan's current one. The white spot under the makeup looked like snot, flowing directly into the mouth. After the makeup was done, the shoot began. There were many questions that could only be answered when the shoot began. For example, Yang Yi said how to make a coquettish sound and a defensive sound. That black charcoal doesn't know how to make a sound. No, it's that it can't make a sound like a cat. Charlie said helplessly. Yang Yi. What do you mean by, can't make a sound like a cat? Jing Tan expressed that this was indeed beyond his ability. A normal cat's sound was already difficult enough, let alone a coquettish sound. Charlie was afraid that this master would be angry, so he quickly explained to Yang Yi. Yang Yi thought about the advertisements that he had seen. It seemed that he had not seen this cat's sound in them. Sighing, Yang Yi said, forget it. I'll think of something when the time comes. Continue. Okay, I'll bite the socks later. What's wrong? Don't bite the socks. Hate smelly socks. Sigh, that's new. It's just that I purposely made it old. If you don't believe me, smell it. Okay, continue. Okay, I'll let it squat on the wooden stool and lick its paws later. What? Don't lick its paws? What kind of cat doesn't lick its paws? Humans suck their fingers too. There's dye. It's okay, the dye is edible. I've eaten it before. Or I'll let it lick the paws that don't have any dye. Okay, continue. After a day of shooting, Charlie and the crew were sweating profusely. Jing Tan was not much better. Yang Yi was too demanding. The director did not feel that there was anything wrong, but Yang Yi was not satisfied. If one thing went wrong, he would reshoot. He probably wanted to have a high degree of overlap with the scenes in his memory. Chapter 311. As for Jing Tan, before he came, the Jiao Pa had told him that he had to play dumb. What did he mean by, when necessary? For example, if he didn't want to shoot a scene, if he didn't want to work with someone, if he wasn't used to the place, if he didn't feel well, or if he needed to pee, he could play dumb and pretend that he didn't know how to act. He could just roll around on the spot. After all, he was a cat. How much could the filming crew ask of a cat? The troublesome things could be dealt with by the crew. Xiaoguo didn't send so many people over just for show. Jing Tan didn't believe that Xiaoguo and the Jiao Pa didn't have a private agreement. However, this was for his own good. Jing Tan understood that it was okay to be smart, but if he acted too smart, it would arouse suspicion. To avoid unnecessary trouble, sometimes it was safer to be a little stupid. There were many scenes that Jing Tan wouldn't shoot in the past, but this time, he tolerated it. After all, this kind of documentary was different from commercials. It took a lot of manpower and material resources. Since Jing Tan had accepted this job, he had to be responsible. Moreover, these scenes were very common for ordinary cats. It wouldn't make sense for him to refuse to act. Jing Tan didn't feel very comfortable with the makeup on his body. He had to touch up his makeup every now and then, especially the eyebrows and whiskers that were accidentally rubbed off. After all, Jing Tan's whiskers were black, but the whiskers of the cat in the photo were white. Fortunately, Jingtan was more efficient. The whole shooting process was much shorter than Yang Yi's plan. The filming crew thought that it would take a long time to shoot these scenes. They didn't expect the cat to be so cooperative. In their opinion, the cat's intelligence was one of the reasons. More importantly, they heard that the few people who came over were a team that specialized in taking care of cats. In their free time, the filming crew even talked to the team members sent by Xiaogua. Little did they know that the team members were smiling so much that their faces were almost stiff. They didn't dare to say some things. They had signed several contracts, and they would do whatever Xiaogua told them to do. Jingtan didn't know how well he acted. He could only tell from Yang Yi's expression that he wasn't up to standard. He could only wait for the final production to be completed. The old man who was acting with Jingtan looked like Yang Yi's grandfather from the side. Of course, he had also put on makeup to make it look more alike. Coupled with some filming techniques, Jingtan believed that Yang Yi would be satisfied when the movie was actually produced. Among them, Jingtan had also come into contact with some of the things that were commonly used in that era, such as the gray cat litter. At that time, almost every house burned coal, which made it easy to clean up. There was also a handmade catwalk made by the people in the Sihiyuan for the little rascals who came in and out all day. A half-foot square hole was made and a curtain was hung. Fat cats and bigger cats would also make the hole bigger. There wasn't any high-tech technology, but it was used well at that time. Other than Jingtan, Xiaomi also made a cameo appearance. Yang Yi wanted to film some scenes where the cats were usually active and having fun. Among them, Yang Yi liked what Little Me did the most. Even when it was alone, Little Me would immediately get high. It would kick, scratch, and bite its own feet as if it was schizophrenic. It would quickly run around the narrow wall, and after it was done playing, it would raise its tail in an S shape. Its chrysanthemum faced the setting sun, and it would stretch lazily. Then, it would start calling for food. Everyone was happy when they were filming. Zhao Li's mother even came to the scene personally. She didn't care about her cat's embarrassing appearance at all. Instead, she thought that cats should be like that. Jingtan could see that Zhao Li's mother valued Xiaomi. It seemed that Xiaomi was to her liking. As for Xiaomi, although it didn't have stage fright, it was too calm and quiet. It stood on the high wall and didn't move. Yang Yi didn't know what to do. After all, this cat was requested by Feng Xiaokong. He had to film something, right? Are these two really brothers? A member of the film crew asked. He was referring to Xiaomi and Xiaomi is a girl. Fang Mengmeng's ears were sharp. After hearing it, she corrected him. Oh, a girl. Quite gentle and quiet. The member of the film crew laughed. He didn't know much about cats and didn't know how to determine the gender of some special cases based on their patterns. After laughing, he looked at Fang Mengmeng and said, "Then can you make your Xiaomi smile?" Smile? Can a cat smile? Fang Mengmeng teased Xiaomi under the wall for a long time. Xiaomi, who was squatting on the wall, finally moved. Its front paws stepped on the ground twice, it straightened its back and looked down. Finally, it pulled out a terrifying smile. All the members of the film crew who were watching, damn, so scary. A few of them even unconsciously scratched their arms, feeling goosebumps all over their bodies. Fang Mengmeng didn't think much of it. Xiaomi was usually more natural in front of people it was familiar with. Once it was unnatural, it would either have facial paralysis or this kind of expression. It was even worse when it was in a bad mood. Feng Xiaokong knew this very well. Now, Xiaomi probably felt that there were too many people it didn't know under the wall. The atmosphere was a little dull. It wasn't as active as Xiaomi and didn't usually take the initiative to stretch out its paws. Fang Mengmeng teased it for a long time but didn't see it stretch out its paws. Fang Mengmeng could only judge its emotional changes through its facial expressions. Of course, it wasn't really Xiaomi's smile just now. It was just a change in its face and mouth that made it look like a smile. However, this was the only way to continue. Okay, that shot just now was good. Every cat is different. If we want to shoot something new, we need to shoot something unique. Yang Yi was quite satisfied. At least they shot something new. At the same time, they could explain it to Feng Xiaokong. At the end of the shoot, Xiaomi was taken away by Zhao Li's mother. Before they left, Jingtan heard Zhao Li's mother talking to the people beside her about Xiaomi. She was glad that she brought Xiaomi back. Otherwise, she would probably be depressed if she met a cat like Xiaomi. As for Xiaomi, Fang Mengmeng was even more glad that she chose Xiaomi. Xiaomi was too troublesome. Her Xiaomi was more obedient. Perhaps to some people, other people's cats were always good. However, even if they praised other people's cats, in the hearts of cat owners, their own cats would always be the first. No matter if it was a mischievous person or a taciturn person, they would love their own cats. This documentary didn't only talk about Jingtan's grandfather. The filming crew also went to interview some other people. Although the latter interviews didn't talk about Jingtan, Jingtan couldn't leave yet. Some scenes might have to be res-hot. Jingtan had to stay for a while, just in case. Therefore, Jingtan followed them to see the people who were being interviewed. The first person they went to was an old writer's house. Both the old man and the old lady were there. The interview was more realistic. The filming location was at the two old people's house. Their children were often not around, so the two old people raised a cat. It was a white field cat. When it saw Jingtan, the cat was very curious and vigilant. It hid around the old man and the old lady and stared at Jingtan. Jingtan walked around the house. The cat didn't have any reaction. It only stretched its neck and stared at Jingtan. When Jingtan came to its cat nest and approached its cat rice bowl, the cat's fur stood up. It rushed over, arched its back, and waved its paws at Jingtan and growled. "Hey, don't worry. That black cat won't fight." Yang Yi comforted the worried old lady. Then, he asked the two old people when they could start. After Jingtan left its rice bowl and cat nest, the cat immediately ran back to the old man and the old lady. The two old people had been interviewed countless times. Therefore, they could handle this kind of situation calmly. The director wouldn't deliberately ask them to do what they wanted. When the old lady was reading and cooking, when the old man was writing, when he was listening to the radio, and the cat's reaction were all filmed. When the old man was writing, the cat would jump on the desk and cause trouble. It would step on the old man's paper and couldn't be pushed away. If it was pushed away again, it would directly lie on the paper. It would only get up slowly when the old lady called it. The old man wasn't angry. He smiled and scratched the cat's chin with the end of the pen. "This guy is very arrogant. When I sit here, it comes over to bully me. Wife? My wife doesn't say anything about it. Instead, she asked me to write some articles to praise it." Looking at the old man's face, he didn't feel wronged or angry at all. Instead, he was very happy. The old man said that the literati in the capital liked to raise cats. He also gave a few examples of writers of the same generation. Under the literati's pen, the cats in the capital were somewhat like young masters who were spoiled in every aspect. Although most of them went from catching rats to eating, drinking, and playing in high-rise apartments to pets, they still had a sense of manliness in their bones. They didn't care if the person they were facing was a literary expert or a small citizen. What were the morals of Chu Hua's cats? Jingtan thought about the few cats he knew. Thinking about it carefully, it seemed that the few cats he knew were somewhat special. Perhaps they were representative of Chu Hua's cats. In addition to the current cat, the old man also recalled the cats he had raised in the past. The old lady also took out a photo album and showed it to everyone. During the interview, the two old people were often immersed in their memories. Sometimes, they would quietly think, as if they forgot that there were people filming the interview around them. There were several times when there was silence. However, neither Yang Yi nor the other people in the film crew turned off their phones or interrupted them. There was no impatience on their faces. Before coming, Jingtan had been told by Charlie about this situation. It was probably Yang Yi's instructions. Every time after the silence, the old man's words were more vivid, very real, and very lively. When talking about the last cat, the old lady's eyes turned red several times. That cat had accompanied the two old people for more than 10 years and had died of old age. The filming crew then went to interview a Chinese art master. During the interview, the old man even took out a painting full of cat footprints. At that time, the old man was painting a fish. In the end, his cat jumped on the table and caused trouble, leaving ink prints everywhere. After that, the old man fixed the painting, framed it, and collected it. When the guests at home talked about related topics, the old man took out the painting to show off, saying that his cat was quite talented in art. Jing Tan also went over to take a look at the painting. Needless to say, it was quite artistic. As expected of a master of Chinese art. Just like in the movie about Tang Bohu, he could always turn something rotten into something magical. The photographer was very good at capturing some details, which made the whole film more vivid and full of soul. During the whole filming, among the cat owners interviewed, there were artists, educators, several famous schools in Beijing, libraries, and some ordinary people. Jing Tan followed them through the streets and alleys. Different venues, different backgrounds, all kinds of cat owners, cats with different temperaments, combined together with the professional production and polish, Jing Tan believed that this would be a good film. No matter how others looked at it, Jing Tan thought that it was very good. Chapter 312. Jing Tan came to Beijing in the middle of November. By the time the part about him was finished, it was almost the middle of December. Jing Tan's part was considered finished, and there was no need to reshoot. As for the follow-up filming, Jing Tan did not need to follow the filming crew around. If he really wanted to follow them, he would probably have to follow them until next year. The filming crew's journey was not finished, and Jing Tan planned to return to Chuhua City early for the new year. Charlie and the people sent over were summoned back by Xiao Gua. They were very busy at the end of the year, and Jing Tan was urged by Fang Mengmeng to stay in Beijing for a while. In the past month, other than when Jing Tan had just arrived in Beijing, Fang Mengmeng did not have much time to see Jing Tan. She even wanted Jing Tan to stay at her house for a few days. Fang Xiaokong came forward to talk to Xiao Gua and Jiao Pa, and asked Jing Tan to go back after a while. Jing Tan could not make it in time for the Christmas special at the pet center, but he had to rush back to film the New Year special. According to Xiao Gua, Jing Tan was there to hold the fort. Jing Tan was quite famous in the cat community on the internet. Every year, many people would look at him during the special because Xiao Gua could always do some little tricks to make Jing Tan amuse the audience. Without Jing Tan, there would definitely be people who would be unhappy. In addition, during this period of time, Jing Tan was absent from some commercials and video shoots. Some people on the internet had already started to make wild guesses. For example, BC is lost, BC is seriously ill, BC was sold, and some people even said that Xiao Gua hid Jing Tan's gender, BC actually went to give birth, and so on. The people on the team were also looking forward to Jing Tan's return. They deeply understood how hard their lives were when Jing Tan was not around. Therefore, Jing Tan could not stay in Beijing for long. The Jiao family also missed him and called 2 or 3 times a week. Now that Charlie had left, Jiao Pa directly called the person introduced by Fang Xiaokong. That person also truthfully told the Jiao family about Jing Tan's situation. Jing Tan did not go to Demi's cat tree at Fang Mengmeng's house. He occupied a guest room of the Fang family's house, which was tacitly allowed by Fang Xiaokong. Jumping on the edge of the table, Jing Tan wiped the blurry water vapor on the window and looked outside through the window. At this time, Beijing was colder than Chuhua City. It was snowing outside a few days ago, but it was still very warm indoors. Jing Tan was a little bored at the Fang family's house. Although the Fang family's house was very big and well decorated, it was still someone else's house. Jing Tan could not secretly go online, he could not run around, he could not throw tantrums, and he could not crawl under the covers. It had only been 2 days, and Jing Tan already wanted to go back to the Jiao family. On the weekend, a guest came to the Fang family's house. The guest was Fang Mengmeng's cousin, Fang Wenjie, who was in his third year of high school. When he came, Fong Mengmeng was playing a game of Guess Which Glass the Pistachio Is In with Demi, and Jingtan was watching from the side. Mengmeng, playing games with Demi again. Hey, whose cat is this? Is it a new member of your family? Don't tell me you got it specially for Demi. Ouch. While the guy was talking nonsense, Jingtan threw the tennis ball at his feet, and it hit the guy's face. Jingtan did not use much strength. He just wanted to teach the guy a lesson, and did not mean to hurt him. Fong Wenjie had a rare short holiday because his family was not around today, so he came over to have a meal. He did not expect to be hit not long after he entered the house. Although it did not hurt much, Fong Wenjie was still surprised. Oh, this cat has a bad temper. Mengmeng, whose cat is this? Fong Wenjie did not get close to Jingtan, but sat next to Fong Mengmeng. However, his eyes were fixed on Jingtan, in case Jingtan threw something at him again. Who told you to talk nonsense? Fong Mengmeng gloated. This is Black Charcoal, my dad's friends. He came here last month to shoot a documentary, so I let him stay at home for a few more days. Shoot a movie? So advanced? Fong Wenjie was surprised. Not a movie, a documentary. Fong Mengmeng corrected. Same meaning. Fong Wenjie was no longer afraid of Jingtan throwing things at him. He got up and walked around Jingtan. Based on my experience, this cat is a Mumbai cat known as a little black panther. Wrong, this cat is an ordinary field cat. Fong Mengmeng despised. Even the face of a little black panther is different. How is it different? I think so. Otherwise, who would find an ordinary field cat that can be bought for 10 yuan? It is a field cat. If you don't believe me, you can ask my dad. Hearing Fong Mengmeng's words, Fong Wenjie thought of his third uncle. He struggled for a while, then said, okay, I'll take it that you're right. After that, Fong Wenjie ran to look for snacks. He did not eat much in the afternoon, and now dinner was not ready yet. He could not wait. By the way, Mengmeng, tomorrow my mom and your mom are going to attend a banquet. Let's not join in the fun. I'll take you out to eat, okay? Fong Wenjie said as he chewed on potato chips. He hated being with those uncles and aunties. Every time, they would compete with each other's children. After that, Fong Wenjie would inevitably be scolded by his parents. He was very unhappy, so he did not want to go to the banquet at all. He would be looking for trouble if he went. Okay. Fong Mengmeng did not want to go either. Although she was young, she knew a lot of things. For example, those who did not have a good relationship with her family, because of her father, immediately came up to her when they met at the banquet. Some of them pretended to be friendly, and some of them even played tricks. Fong Mengmeng was very annoyed. When Fong Wenjie was talking to Fong Mengmeng, Jingtan was listening at the side. Fong Wenjie was in his third year of high school. It seemed that he was still in his rebellious period. His grades were not good. His family had hired several tutors for him, but it was useless. Every tutor who was hired with a high salary was angered by Fong Wenjie. It was said that many of the tutors hired were students from the top few universities in Beijing. Among them, there were even graduate students and doctoral students. It was useless. Although the Fong family was rich and capable, even if they could operate in college, their grades could not be too bad. They could not afford to lose face. Listening to Fong Wenjie's tone when he was talking, it seemed that he hated those tutors. He felt that those tutors were too arrogant and self-righteous, and Fong Wenjie was just a dandy in their eyes. Explaining to him was simply like playing the lute to a cow. Even a pig would understand, but this person still had a blank look. Now that the winter break was coming, and in the last half of high school, Fong Wenjie's parents had started to find people to tutor Fong Wenjie during the winter break. Fong Wenjie could already see the dark winter break this year. Moreover, Fong Wenjie's family had restricted him from now on. He was not allowed to go out and have fun with his friends frequently. His pocket money was limited, and he was even cut off from the internet. Thinking that this kind of life would continue for another half a year, Fang Wenjie felt that his vision was dark. Just the last half a year. After that, it will be easier. Fang Mengmeng said. It's easy for you to say that. When you reach my age, you will know how unhappy it is. It's stressful. Fang Wenjie sighed. Jing Tan and Fang Mengmeng both looked at Fang Wenjie. They did not see any stressful expression on his face. The next day, after lunch, Fang Wenjie went to Fang Mengmeng's house. He was not yet 18 years old and did not have a driver's license. His family was strict, so he could not drive his own car. However, they had a driver. Jing Tan would definitely follow them when they went out for a meal. If they did not go out for a big meal, were they going to stay here and eat cat food like Demi? Jing Tan would not do that. Therefore, Jing Tan decided to follow them out for a big meal. Jing Tan felt a shiver when he walked out of the door. He quickly got into the car. It was really cold outside. No wonder Fang Mengmeng was wearing so much. Jing Tan's fur was short, unlike Demi and the rest. However, Demi did not seem to like going out with Fang Wenjie. After seeing Fang Wenjie, Demi jumped onto the sofa to sleep. Fang Mengmeng did not call it anymore. It was already used to this. When Fang Mengmeng got into the car, she was carrying a big backpack and a white pet suit. This was bought when Demi was still young. However, Demi did not wear it much after buying it. It did not like to wear clothes, so Fang Mengmeng did not throw it away. She liked the suit very much. It was in the style of a polar bear, so she kept it. She did not expect it to come in handy today. Jing Tan also did not like to be tied down by those clothes. However, when he thought about the temperature outside and did not know how long he would have to stay outside in the afternoon, Jing Tan decided not to treat himself harshly. He let Fang Mengmeng put on the white clothes that looked very warm. There was also a hood on his head. After putting it on, Jing Tan looked at himself in the rearview mirror. The clothes looked a little silly. Fang Mengmeng even took a few photos. Fang Wenjie sat in the front passenger seat and laughed. It was still early. Lunch had not been long ago. They would not go straight to eat. Before that, they had to go to the bookstore. Fang Wenjie wanted to buy a few reference books. His mother had listed them for him. He could not refuse to buy them. Fang Mengmeng was not against going to the bookstore. Instead, she was looking forward to it. Children who did not need to buy reference books, and practice questions were good. The driver was sent away by Fang Wenjie. The bookstore was very close to the place where they had lunch. There was no need to keep the driver waiting. After lunch, Fang Wenjie would call the driver to pick them up. When Fang Wenjie and Fang Mengmeng entered the bookstore to read, Jing Tan would definitely follow them in. There were many people walking around in the bookstore. He did not know if there was a pet restriction. Jing Tan still had to stay in the backpack. Black charcoal, stay in the backpack when you are inside. Don't run around and bark. You will be beaten out with a mop, Fang Wenjie said as he carried the backpack. There was a heater in the bookstore, so it was warmer. There was a section in the bookstore about the college entrance examination. It was full of practice questions and practice papers. There were quite a lot of people, but most people were only paying attention to the reference books in their hands or looking for books on the bookshelves. They did not notice the cat's head in Fang Wenjie's backpack. A few people saw it, but they just looked at it curiously and did not pay it any more attention. Fang Wenjie quickly found 2 books. When he was looking for the 3rd book, he had to squeeze in further. He was not polite. When he saw the book on the bookshelf, he forced the person in front of him to the side. The movement was too big. The book in the person's hand fell to the ground because of Fang Wenjie's push. After saying, sorry, without any sincerity, Fang Wenjie did not even look at the person and went straight to find the reference book. The person who had the book pushed out frowned and squatted down to pick it up. He was about to put it back when he looked up and saw the cat's head outside the backpack. The white polar bear pet's hat was on Jing Tan's head. A white hat and a black cat's face. The person who was holding the book paused. His eyes were filled with doubt and uncertainty. Jing Tan was looking around curiously. When he was at Tsinghua University, he had been to a small bookstore a few times, but he had no experience in a big bookstore like this. His curiosity was piqued, especially when he saw the few pretty girls not far away. Jing Tan took a few more glances. It was not until Fang Wenjie made a big push that Jing Tan retracted his gaze and looked at the unlucky guy. Jing Tan was dumbfounded by what she saw. Chapter 313. Wasn't this the Zhong Yan who always squatted in the corner, carried bricks at the construction site behind his family's back in his 3rd year of high school? Thinking back, this guy should be in his 3rd year of college now. Jing Tan really didn't expect to meet this guy in this place. Zhong Yan's eyes were filled with doubt. Even if he felt like it, Tsinghua City was so far away from Beijing, and he didn't know the guy with the bad attitude. Jing Tan was still dressed like a white ball, so it was already hard to recognize him. Now, it was even harder to be sure. Zhong Yan actually didn't think this was the cat he knew, but this cat's expression was too familiar. Even if he hadn't seen it for more than 2 years, among all the cats Zhong Yan had seen, this one was the most special. Look, it's even waving its paws at me. Is it really that cat? Should I ask this guy? While Zhong Yan was hesitating, Fang Wenjie, who had already gotten the reference book, turned around and saw someone standing behind him, staring at his backpack. He stared at him and said, "What are you looking at? Have you never seen a cat before?" Fang Wenjie turned around and was about to leave. After taking 2 steps, he heard a voice behind him, "Black charcoal?" Hearing this, Fang Wenjie stopped and turned around to look at the person who had just spoken. Is it really black charcoal? Zhong Yan's eyes lit up, and the annoyance from the book being pushed away dissipated. You know it? Fang Wenjie was puzzled, and raised his hand to point at the backpack behind him. Yes, but isn't it in Tsinghua City? Zhong Yan wondered if this cat had been sold to Beijing, but didn't they say that this cat had someone backing it when they were at the construction site? Hearing Zhong Yan say, Tsinghua City, Fang Wenjie lowered his guard a little, but he wasn't sure. He took out his phone and called Fang Mengmeng, asking her to come over. The bookstore was too big, and there were too many people, so it was easier to contact her by phone. However, even a Jiao family might not be able to recognize all the people Jing Tan knew. Many of the people he met while walking around didn't even know the Jiao family, let alone Fang Mengmeng. The 2 Fangs could only determine if they were acquaintances through Jing Tan's attitude. Fang Wenjie's plan this afternoon was to buy some books and then sleep in the bookstore. It was too cold outside and he didn't want to move. When it was time, he would go straight to the restaurant to eat. Now that he met Zhong Yan, he was bored and wanted to talk to him. He was curious how Zhong Yan knew the black cat. As for Fang Mengmeng, she left after coming over. She had found a few books that she was interested in and wanted to read them for a while. Fang Wenjie immediately rushed over and occupied 4 seats before the others sat down. He used his bag and books to occupy the empty seats. Zhong Yan came with his friends today. When he was a freshman, he worked part-time in a fast food restaurant and made 2 friends. They were from different schools. The person who came today was one of them. The other one had graduated this year. Zhong Yan's tutoring job was also introduced to him by this friend. In the morning, he would tutor a 3rd-year student. In the afternoon, Zhong Yan and his friend, who was also a part-time tutor, would come here to look for tutoring books for 3rd-year students. Many people said that the college entrance examination was not a fair platform and was full of regional discrimination. Zhong Yan didn't care. He had already passed the exam. Taking the tutoring books for 3rd-year students was just to tutor another 3rd-year student. There were also differences in the college entrance examination system in different provinces. The types of questions, policies, preferences, and so on all had to be studied. After 2 years of tutoring, he wasn't used to it in the first year. However, it was much better in the second year. Zhong Yan was never a rigid person. He knew how to be flexible and could solve the problem. His reputation was good and the parents were willing to give him money. Zhong Yan's classmate was originally chatting with a girl. When he saw the situation here, he came over and the three of them started chatting. One of them said, "It's tough. We have to tutor during the holidays." The other two nodded. "Yes. Every time we tutor, those students look at us as if we are their enemies." Zheng Tan listened to them talk. From their words, he knew that Zhong Yan didn't go home after coming to Beijing. He also earned his own tuition and living expenses. It seemed that his relationship with his family was still at a freezing point. No wonder he hadn't seen Zhong Yan in Chuhua for 2 years. Fang Wenjie was quite excited when he heard that Zhong Yan was a super dark horse during the college entrance examination. He directly flew from the ordinary level of the class to the top 3 of the school. He slapped some people's faces loudly. He felt that a creature like a dark horse was simply a beast that pretended to be pretentious and slapped people's faces. Even Zhong Yan was more pleasing to the eye. Although Zhong Yan didn't talk about his own matters, he would still meet his high school classmates in Beijing. Those who were close to Zhong Yan had more or less heard about it. Therefore, when his friend mentioned it, Fang Wenjie was excited. He couldn't stop the topic. As Fang Wenjie chatted, he pondered in his heart. His mother was currently looking for a tutor during the winter break. Instead of finding someone he didn't like, it would be better to just let Zhong Yan and the others go over. When he was bored, he would have someone to talk to. When he was chatting just now, Fang Wenjie felt that Zhong Yan and the others were quite interesting. They weren't like the tutors his mother hired before, who always had arrogant expressions like, "I'm a genius, my words are more correct than the reference answers in the reference books, you have to listen to whatever I say," and so on. Although those people rarely showed it on their faces, Fang Wenjie could see that they thought that way in their hearts. Fang Wenjie also raised his own thoughts. He wasn't joking. He was serious. "Forget about me. I can fool the servants. If you really want a tutor, you should find Zhong Yan. This guy is at least from Beijing University. Moreover, Zhong Yan doesn't go home during the new year. He has time," Zhong Yan's friend said. He could see that Fang Wenjie's family conditions were good. Although he would definitely make a lot of money if he took on this job, he also knew that the better the family conditions, the more the parents valued the school. Therefore, he could only politely decline to avoid being kicked out by the parents when the time came. "Don't go home. That's just right. Zhong Yan, you don't have to take on other tutoring jobs during the winter break. Don't worry, my mother is absolutely generous with the money." Fang Wenjie's words were not wrong. His mother was indeed very generous to tutors. In addition to the remuneration agreed upon at the signing of the contract, she also gave out red packets from time to time. The money in the red packets was definitely not much less than the remuneration in the contract. This was also one of the reasons why Fang Wenjie was very displeased with those tutors. How could they have the face to receive red packets when they didn't produce results? Therefore, Fang Wenjie had an excuse to find fault with those tutors. The last tutor was directly scolded away by him. After all, most intellectuals were thin-skinned. Zheng Tan felt that the people of the Fang family were very unreliable on the surface, but in fact, that was not the case. Fang Xiaokong was an excellent example. And as Fang Xiaokong's nephew, Zheng Tan did not think that Fang Wenjie was a stupid person. Take the matter of hiring a tutor as an example. Fang Wenjie did not impulsively send out the invitation. The so-called pleasing to the eye was naturally one of the reasons. Another reason was that when they were chatting just now, Fang Wenjie's seemingly casual and hot-headed complaints were mixed in with a few learning questions. These questions were all solved by Zhong Yan in a simple and straightforward way that was easier to understand, which made Fang Wenjie very satisfied. Fang Wenjie never felt that he was stupid. He felt that it was very difficult for him to understand the things that those senior tutors said before, mainly because every time those people opened their mouths, they used a lot of professional jargon. If they said it bluntly, it would make them lose face. Would it kill them to be more vulgar? Was there really such a clear distinction between elegance and vulgarity? Fang Wenjie listened impatiently. "Hey, bringing this cat out was really the right thing to do. Carrying such a heavy bag for so long was not in vain. Feng Wenjie was very happy. If this matter was solved, he would not have to live in darkness and oppression this winter break. Compared to Feng Wenjie's carefree heart, Zhong Yan's heart was much more complicated. What his friend could see, he could naturally also think of. He was still very confident in tutoring Feng Wenjie. He knew that this person was not stupid, just a little rebellious. If he took this job, he would not have to worry about tuition and living expenses next year. Under normal circumstances, he would not have such an opportunity. If he had not met the cat today and talked to Feng Wenjie, even if he was at Beijing University, he might not have been able to get into the tutor's good books. It could be seen from the disdain in Feng Wenjie's eyes when he talked about his previous tutor. Glancing at the black cat on the chair next to him, who was dressed like a polar bear and stretching its neck to look at something, Zhong Yan thought for a moment. It seemed that every time he met this cat, his luck was good. Meeting an old friend in a foreign land. Zhong Yan could finally understand the reason why the ancients put this as one of the 4 joys of life. This kind of feeling could only be deeply understood when one was really in that kind of situation. Even if this was the capital, Zhong Yan still missed home many times. When he occasionally heard the moonlight in the city, from more than 10 years ago, he would feel sad. Every time he called home, he was not very happy. He had not been home for 2 years, not even during the holidays. He just called to let them know that he was safe, and then continued to work, part-time, to earn tuition, and to study hard. He could not relax on either side. He had not officially stepped into society, but he already felt that his shoulders were heavy. It could be said that in the past 2 years of studying in Beijing, it was not easy. Classmates? Of course, he had met them. There were many schools in Beijing, and he often went out and met a few junior high or high school classmates, but their relationship was not very good. There were also 2 high school classmates who did not like Zhong Yan, the dark horse in the college entrance examination. When they met, they also mocked and ridiculed him, and then everyone went their separate ways. They were not old friends. Dark horse? Kind of. But even the biggest dark horse would become ordinary in Beijing, where there were so many talents. Everyone wanted to soar into the sky, but how many people could really do it? Zhong Yan once thought that he would be one of them after the college entrance examination, but after experiencing some reality blows, his confidence faded a lot. The world was very exciting, but also very helpless. How should one walk? After stumbling and falling, one still had to continue walking. If one could walk through this, there might be a better future. After staying in the bookstore for more than 2 hours, Jing Tan saw a few good-looking girls, 3 of which were of mixed blood, and a celebrity who wore a hat and scarf to cover half of her face. However, the celebrity quickly ran away when she was recognized. When the people in the store chased after her, she was already gone. Feng Wenjie looked at the time and called Feng Mengmeng back. He pulled Zhong Yan and his friends to eat together. The target restaurant was a building with a more retro architectural style, like an ancient restaurant. There were even big red lanterns hanging outside. When they walked to the door, someone came out of the parking lot. Little Jia. A shout made Feng Wenjie, who was running in, stop. He looked over and immediately smiled. Yo, brother Beast, when did you come back to Beijing? 2 days ago. I came here for some business. Qin Tao took out his phone that had been ringing. I'm here. Hurry up and order. I'm starving. Chapter 314. Zheng Tan was originally nestled in his backpack, but when he heard Qin Tao's voice, he poked his head out. He was still wondering why this guy was here when he heard the latter part of Qin Tao's sentence. No matter when or where, Qin Tao always had a funny look on his face. He couldn't take any medicine well. 2 minutes later, Qin Tao and Mao were laughing so hard at the entrance of the restaurant that they couldn't even straighten their backs. The people passing by the entrance looked at them as if they were crazy. No, it was the 3 of them. There was another person who came out with Mao. Zheng Tan didn't know him, but he seemed to have a good relationship with Mao and Qin Tao. No matter how thick-skinned Fang Wenjie was, he couldn't help but feel embarrassed when so many people stared at him strangely. His level was far below Mao and Qin Tao's. As for Fang Mengmeng, she had already taken a few steps back when Qin Tao started laughing. She separated herself from Fang Wenjie and looked elsewhere to show that she wasn't with these jokers. Zhong Yan and his friends were a little embarrassed. They didn't know how to react. Their skin hadn't been worn out yet. Qin Tao and Mao came to Beijing to attend a friend's wedding. They came here 2 days in advance for the gathering, but they didn't expect to meet Jingtan and the others today. They also saw Jingtan wrapped in a jacket that didn't match his style. "I say, Black Coal, how did you get yourself into this?" As Mao spoke, he reached out and tugged at the bear ears on the polar bear hat. With his other hand, he took a few photos to show to his wife and Lulu. And he would also buy some new clothes for Black Rice. Jingtan couldn't be bothered with these two, but he was puzzled. Mao was fine, but how did Qin Tao recognize him at a glance? As he was thinking, Qin Tao said in surprise, "Ah? This cat is really black charcoal?" Jingtan. He had overestimated this person's eyesight. Mao's text message paused. "If you didn't recognize it, then why were you laughing?" He laughed because he was used to the black cat's serious look. When he was in Chuhua City, he didn't see the cat wearing anything except a vest. Today, when he saw the cat's outfit, Mao couldn't help but laugh. It was like seeing a strong man wearing a doll's outfit. The contrast was too big. "I think this cat looks stupid. It's obviously black, but it's wearing white," Qin Tao said. Thinking that the cat in front of him was the black cat from Chuhua City, Qin Tao, who had just stopped, started to laugh again. Hearing from Fang Wenjie that Jingtan had come to Beijing to film a documentary, Mao and Qin Tao were very surprised. At the same time, they also expressed that they would definitely support him when the time came and promote him. Not only Qin Tao and Mao, but Zhong Yan also heard it. He thought that when the film was released, he would go to the school and the surrounding school forums to promote it. The forums of these universities were quite popular. He believed that the effect would be good. The film hadn't been released yet, and Yang Yi and Xiaogua hadn't started promoting it, but the advertisement had already been released. Although documentaries rarely had the same celebrity effect as movies and television dramas, and there were also very few people who could be recognized by the audience. Most of them were unknown people. However, Yang Yi probably wouldn't have thought that Jingtan's trip would bring about an advertising effect. Probably finally feeling embarrassed, the group walked into the restaurant. Mao wanted to ask Fang Wenjie not to book a separate room and ask him to join them. There were only 3 people in Mao's group today, but after thinking about it, he didn't do that. He guessed that if they were together, everyone's topics would be different. Qin Tao would definitely continue his topic of, a man's temperament is directly related to what kind of wife he marries, and Fang Wenjie would probably continue to complain about his menopausal class teacher. Therefore, it was better to separate. They could talk freely. That way, they could enjoy themselves to the fullest. When they walked into the restaurant and parted ways, Mao called Jingtan over and said a few words. Jingtan's anger from being mocked just now hadn't subsided. He didn't have a good look at Mao, but after hearing what Mao said, Jingtan became serious, which was rare. Mao told Jingtan that he had seen Ah Wu when he went out the day before. He had also heard some things about cats. If Mao hadn't mentioned it, Jingtan would have almost forgotten about the cat trainer called Ah Wu. Probably because of the series of activities held in Beijing next year, the relevant departments accelerated the investigation of some criminal cases, as well as those potential threats. After Ah Wu came to Beijing, he was recruited through some channels to assist in the investigation and arrest. He didn't expect that those cats really did a lot of work. Ordinary people wouldn't think too deeply about a cat if they saw it in the daytime or at night. In the area of drug enforcement, firefighting, search and rescue, and so on, only dogs were well known. Who would think of cats? When he was caught, he didn't know what went wrong and exposed himself. Mao was just reminding him. He didn't think that Jingtan would get involved in this. It was also a reminder. He didn't want Jingtan to be tricked and used as a tool, especially by that Wu guy. This was not Chuhua City. There was no one to protect Jingtan. If something happened, they might not be able to find help in time. After all, it was just a cat. It had no human rights and was not protected by the law. It would die in vain. If something really happened, the Jiao family would probably cry until they fainted in the toilet. Fang Mengmeng and Fang Wenjie definitely hadn't heard of this kind of thing. If he hadn't met Mao today, Jingtan wouldn't have known. However, even if Jingtan knew now, he didn't think that he would have anything to do with Wu and those people. Moreover, during these days in Beijing, he hadn't seen any familiar cats or other suspicious people. Of course, it could be that Jingtan didn't pay attention to it. But thinking that in 2 or 3 days, someone would send Jingtan back to Chuhua City. When he returned to Chuhua City, there would be many people to protect him. Thinking of this, Jingtan was relieved. It had only been 2 or 3 days. He didn't have to be curious or meddle in other people's business. He just needed to eat, drink, and sleep. When Mao told Jingtan about this, no one else heard it. The others didn't expect Mao to tell this to a cat, so they didn't ask much. Just as Mao expected, Fang Wenjie kept complaining about his class teacher in the private room. Then, he brought out the teachers of the other subjects one by one. Whether they were pleasing to the eye or not, he could always come up with a lot of reasons. If Mao and Qin Tao were here, Fang Wenjie might not have said all these things. This was because he wasn't sure if the two of them would turn around and tell on him to his father. Zhong Yan and his friends were listening at the side. Fang Mengmeng had long been used to Fang Wenjie's words. She ate at the side without changing her expression. At the same time, she added some food to Jingtan's plate. When she was raising Demi, Fang Mengmeng had read a lot of professional books. She remembered which things could be eaten and which were best not to be fed. However, her father also said that this black cat was a little special and couldn't be judged by common sense. After hesitating, Fang Mengmeng followed her father's instructions and directly added food to his plate. Relationships could always improve by leaps and bounds at the dining table. After a meal, Fang Wenjie had become much more familiar with Zhong Yan and the others. Zhong Yan and Qin Tao also became more casual in their conversation. After the meal, the three of them exchanged contact information. Fang Wenjie said that he would get someone to send Zhong Yan and Qin Tao, but Zhong Yan refused. They could just take the bus. It was still early and there was a direct bus. Mao and the others were still eating inside. After eating, they would go out to have fun. Of course, they didn't dare to do anything too out of line. One was already married, one was about to get married, and Qin Tao was still in the process of turning over a new leaf. Before Fang Wenjie left, he went over to say hello. The three of them were drinking happily. They were probably talking about something inappropriate for minors. Fang Wenjie was pushed out of the door before he could say anything. The driver who picked up Fang Mengmeng and Fang Wenjie quickly came over after receiving a call. The night was very cold, but it was very warm in the car. Jingtan leaned against the window and looked at the night view outside. Many places had billboards advertising a major competition that would be held next year. There was an endless stream of cars and all kinds of people. As the car drove by, Jingtan didn't have time to look. Even if he saw a tall foreign beauty just now, he didn't have time to look at her for more than a few seconds. Probably because he had eaten too much tonight, his stomach and intestines were too active. The amount of blood in his head and limbs was reduced, and the blood supply to his brain was insufficient. Coupled with the warmth in the car, Jingtan was drowsy. Next to him, Fang Wenjie had already fallen asleep. Fang Mengmeng was also yawning. At a red light, the car stopped. After yawning again, Jingtan glanced outside. Huh. Jingtanzi stood up and leaned against the window to look out. 3 meters away from their car, there was a row of stone piers on the sidewalk. At this moment, a cat was squatting on one of the stone piers. It was a cat with a white body and a black tail. There were many cats with this color of fur in the world, but Jingtan could still confirm at a glance that this was the cat that he had seen beside Ah Wu before. He remembered that it was called Longan or something. The car window was covered with a film, so the people outside couldn't see the figure in the car. Longan naturally couldn't see Jingtan either. She remembered that there used to be two other cats around this cat, called Lotus Seed and Babeo. However, when Jingtan leaned against the window and looked around carefully, looking for the figures of the other two cats, the car moved, and soon, Longan's figure could not be seen. The coolness of the car window made Jingtan sober. According to the information revealed by Air Mao, Jingtan guessed what Longan and the others were doing. Drug enforcement? Chasing after criminals? It was really possible. When they met in the past, the three of them were almost tamed, so it was reasonable for them to do something similar. Jingtan himself had participated in similar operations. No matter what they were doing, Jingtan felt that it had nothing to do with him. In 2 or 3 days, he would return to Chuhua. The matters in Beijing had nothing to do with him. Therefore, Jingtan quickly put these matters to the back of his mind. The driver first sent Fang Wenjie home, then sent Fang Mengmeng and Jingtan back. When they arrived at Fang Mengmeng's house, Jingtan saw Dammy running outside. In front of Dammy, a pug wearing a small cotton-padded jacket was running around with its tail between its legs. After hearing the sound of the car, Dammy ran over and stopped chasing the pug. The pug barked a few more times, bluffing. When Dammy took 2 steps in that direction, the dog immediately ran away. When Dammy stopped, it continued barking. "Dammy, you bullied it again." Fang Mengmeng picked up Dammy, who ran over. Jingtan saw clearly that Dammy's paws were still holding the dog's fur. It seemed like Dammy was actually quite ferocious, just like its father. When it came to fighting, it was definitely good. Chapter 315. At the end of the year, Fang Xiaokong was especially busy. Although he was usually busy, he would take a day off every week to relax. Now, he had no time at all. Even when he called Fang Mengmeng, he was in a hurry. Fang Xiaokong arranged for someone to send Jingtan back to Chuhua. The exact date was also confirmed. Because of some last-minute matters, it was pushed back by 2 days. However, it was only 2 days. Jingtan could afford to wait. Jingtan yawned on the sofa and looked at the date on the calendar. Fortunately, he could go back the day after tomorrow. For the past few days, Jingtan had been holed up indoors, eating and sleeping. He did not go out. Firstly, it was too cold outside. Secondly, it was because of what Air Mao had said. Therefore, Jingtan decided to laze around indoors to avoid any trouble. In the afternoon, Fang Mengmeng came home from school. After dinner, she informed her mother and went out. There was a model competition in her school. Recently, she had been discussing with 2 of her classmates. Fang Mengmeng's 2 classmates also lived in this villa area. It was convenient for them to form a group to discuss things. Demi followed Fang Mengmeng out. Every day, Demi would come back with a few short strands of dog fur in its paws. The pug that Jingtan saw being chased by Demi that night was the target of Demi's bullying. "Black charcoal, let's go out together. It's time to move around. Look, you've put on weight these few days." Fang Mengmeng looked at Jingtan on the sofa and said before leaving. "Fat? Really? Muscles?" Jingtan looked down and did not feel fat. However, compared to the days when he was filming the documentary, he did grow a little. It was mainly because filming the documentary was more tiring. After that, he followed the filming crew everywhere and lost some weight. After filming, he did not have to do anything at Fang Mengmeng's house. He only cared about eating and sleeping. The weight that he lost immediately grew back. However, it was true that he did not move much. After thinking for a while, Jingtan decided to follow Fang Mengmeng and Dammy out for a walk. He would treat it as a chance to digest his food. It should be fine to just walk around the villa area. He could also take a look at how the children were going to fix the models. This time, Jingtan didn't wear the polar bear costume that had been mocked by Ermao and Qin Tao. Anyway, he wasn't going to travel far. As long as he was nearby, he didn't want to wear that. Otherwise, he would be laughed at by others. After leaving the house, the difference in temperature between the outside and the outside made Jingtan shiver. Looking at the rice beside him that was not affected at all, Jingtan sighed in his heart. There was nothing he could do, he could not be envious. Compared to summer, the fur on Demi's body was much thicker in winter. It was already much stronger than other cats, but now it looked even stronger and stronger. It was no wonder that a few cats in this residential area ran away when they saw Demi. They were probably bullied before. Fang Mengmeng wrapped herself in a scarf and brought Jingtan and Demi to her classmate's house. After walking for less than 5 minutes, they arrived at a European-style villa. Instead of pressing the doorbell, they stood below and shouted, "Chu Leia." When Jingtan first heard this name, he thought that she was calling for someone to come out. Later, he found out that it was the name of a mixed-race girl who was one of Fang Mengmeng's classmates and model team members. After Fang Mengmeng shouted twice from below, Chu Leia came out with a small bag. Whose black cat is this?" Chu Leia asked Jingtan, who was standing next to Fang Mengmeng and Dami. "My dad's friend's cat. My family's Dami's, elder." Fang Mengmeng heard Fang Xiaokong say the word elder when she was on the phone with Fang Xiaokong. Later on, when she introduced Jingtan to others, Fang Mengmeng would add this phrase. "Elder?" Chu Leia walked and looked at Jingtan curiously. "But it's not as tall as Dami." Jingtan was speechless. He felt like he had been stabbed in the chest. "They're not related by blood. They're of different breeds. You can't compare them," Fang Mengmeng explained. "Oh, that's true." Chu Leia nodded and did not add insult to Jingtan's injury. The two walked along the road for about 10 minutes and came to a villa. This time, Fang Mengmeng did not shout from below. Instead, she walked to the door with Chu Leia and pressed the doorbell. Woof 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 woof. As the doorbell rang, the dog inside barked. Jingtan knew that it was the pug that was always bullied by Dami. Soon, the door was opened. A boy about the same age as Fang Mengmeng and Chu Leia opened the door with a biscuit in his mouth. This should be the other member of Fang Mengmeng's team, the boy named Ho Junyi. "I'm late." Ho Junyi opened the door. When he opened the door, his pug, Mao Do, was already in front of the door. When Dami came in, it immediately ran away and hid beside Ho Junyi, barking at Dami. The three of them were already used to the way the cat and dog interacted. Speaking of which, these two were childhood friends and had been fighting since they were young. Mao Do had also been bullied by Dami since it was young. Although Dami was always fierce to Mao Do, if Mao Do fought with other dogs or cats, Dami would definitely rush over to help Mao Do. "Monkey, your Mao Do really loses every battle and keeps on fighting," Fang Mengmeng said with a smile. Ho Junyi's nickname was Monkey. This surname had caused him a lot of trouble. His nickname was just one of the small problems. Hearing Fang Mengmeng's words, Ho Junyi snorted and did not comment. "Hey, there's a black cat!" Ho Junyi exclaimed when he saw Jingtan. He only had 2 impressions of cats, the type that ran when they saw dogs and the type that fought when they saw dogs. Jingtan was a special case that Ho Junyi had seen. He ignored Mao Do and did not fight with him. It was as if he was not interested in Mao Do at all. Fang Mengmeng once again briefly explained Jingtan's background. Ho Junyi's house had a workshop specially arranged for him. Fang Mengmeng and the other 2 designed their works in this workshop. Jingtan watched the 3 children make handmade models. Dami and Mao Do were already running around the house. Ho Junyi's parents did not say anything. They were already used to this. After the 3 of them were busy for an hour, they took a break. Ho Junyi's mother brought in a stack of desserts and some snacks. The 3 children chatted and talked about television dramas and their favorite celebrities. Ho Junyi was not at all interested in the celebrities that Fong Mengmeng and Chu Lei mentioned. He was not a fan of celebrities. Instead, he admired the big shots in engineering. His grandfather was from the Academy of Engineering, and his father was also a talent in this field. The things that he had been exposed to since he was young made him more interested in things in this field. As for chasing celebrities, what was there to chase? Zheng Tan pursed his lips. This kid was still young. Naturally, he did not know why certain female celebrities and actresses were so popular with men. As for the male celebrities that Fong Mengmeng and Chu Lei mentioned, Zheng Tan expressed that he was only interested in things like X-photos. Because Ho Junyi's facial expression was too obvious, after Fong Mengmeng mentioned the names of a few idols, she asked Ho Junyi, "What's with that expression? Don't you like them?" "I don't like them," Ho Junyi said firmly. "Jealous men are the ugliest." Chu Lei sneered. Zheng Tan was speechless. Why did it sound so awkward when these words came out from the mouth of a little girl younger than little Pomelo? Ho Junyi's face turned red. "I'm not jealous. There's nothing to admire about them in the first place. Just like that Xiao next door. I don't like him." "Xiao?" Fong Mengmeng and Chu Lei looked at Ho Junyi at the same time. "Doesn't your neighbor own a company?" "No, how long ago was that?" "The house was transferred to that Xiao 3 years ago," Ho Junyi said. "What Xiao?" "Gongzi Xiao or something," Ho Junyi said after some thought. "Gongzi Xiao?" Zheng Tan felt that the two girls' eyes began to light up when they heard Gongzi Xiao. Zheng Tan and Ho Junyi could not help but move back a little. Knowing that Gongzi Xiao lived next door and might be at home today, the two girls could not help but stand up immediately. They could talk about the model tomorrow. Gongzi Xiao was not that easy to bump into. Otherwise, they would have known that Gongzi Xiao lived next door to Ho Junyi for the past 3 years. The two girls scolded Ho Junyi for not being loyal enough. Gongzi Xiao had lived here for 3 years, and Ho Junyi only mentioned it now. Ho Junyi was also aggrieved. He did not like those celebrities. Besides, Gongzi Xiao was often not at home. He just happened to see him today when he went out to walk the dog. The two girls wanted to visit Gongzi Xiao. Ho Junyi, who was in a bad mood, was dragged along. Zheng Tan followed them. Speaking of Gongzi Xiao, Zheng Tan was quite familiar with this person. This person became popular in the past 2 years. Gongzi Xiao was the name of one of the characters this person played. Moreover, this person's name also had the word Xiao in it. Later on, he was called Gongzi Xiao by his fans. This person starred in a few good TV series, some in ancient times, some in modern times. When he was in the Jiao family, Zheng Tan and Jiao Ma watched this Gongzi Xiao's TV series together. From his past roles in TV series and the management and promotion of entertainment and public relations, many people felt that this Gongzi Xiao was a good-looking, good-natured, considerate, humorous, and handsome young man. It could be said that his fans ranged from 8-year-old girls to 80-year-old old ladies. In the popular ancient TV series that aired in the first half of this year, this Jiao Ma would sit on the sofa and wait for the TV after washing the dishes and sweeping the floor every night. Since the two children wanted to ask for autographs, Zheng Tan thought about asking for one when he had the chance. When he returned to Chuhua City, he would give it to Jiao Ma. Although Jiao Ma had passed the age of fanaticism, an autograph from a favorite celebrity would definitely make her happy for a long time. It was rare for him to come to Beijing, so this trip was not in vain. Actually, Zheng Tan felt that people like Fong Mengmeng only needed a word from her father to get an autograph or photo. But obviously, these children might not have realized this yet. When they went downstairs, Ho Junyi's father saw that the three of them were about to go out and asked, "Going out?" "Yes, going out for a while." "I'll send them home later," Ho Junyi said. Ho Junyi's father nodded and did not say anything else. He only said, "Don't go too far at night." "I know." Ho Junyi really did not want to tell his parents about the embarrassing thing of asking for an autograph from an idol. Seeing that the young master was going out, Mao Dou immediately squeezed out before the door was tightly shut. Demi was also quick and was one step ahead of Mao Dou. 3 people, 2 cats, and a dog stood in front of Gong Zizhao's house. Ho Junyi was pushed forward to press the doorbell. There was a room upstairs with a light on. There was someone in the house. After waiting for a minute, he did not hear any movement inside. He pressed the doorbell again, but still no one came to open the door. Ho Junyi turned around and was about to ask the 2 of them to give up, but when he saw the disappointment in their eyes, he braced himself and pressed the doorbell again. Just as Fang Mengmeng was about to give up, the door opened. The person who opened the door was a good-looking young man in his 20s. He was wearing a sweatshirt and there was a little sweat on his forehead. He looked like he had just finished exercising. Chapter 3:16. When Gong Zixiao saw the 3 children at the door, he was surprised. Knowing the purpose of their visit, Gong Zixiao called the 3 of them into the house. It was too cold outside, and the 3 children did not have any photos or posters with them. Looking at the stubborn looks of the 2 little girls, even if Gong Zixiao was impatient, he still put on a friendly face. However, when he saw a dog and 2 cats following him through the door, Gong Zixiao stopped in his tracks and frowned. "Well, Gong Zixiao, do you not like cats and dogs?" Fang Mengmeng asked carefully. Gong Zixiao's brows relaxed and he waved his hand. "No, I had a friend who brought a dog here before, but the dog was too naughty. In less than an hour, it destroyed my sofa, a few props, and a script. But, it's okay. Well, my Dammy is very obedient and will never cause trouble. I will take care of it and not let it cause you trouble," Fang Mengmeng quickly promised. "My Edu is the same." Ho Junyi called Edu, who was sniffing everywhere, to his side, afraid that it would cause trouble. Zheng Tan had been paying attention to this Gong Zixiao. He had heard people say that an actor with superb acting skills would always have a temperament that was constantly changing. Due to the need to adapt to different roles, they were constantly competing with others in their daily life. Therefore, out of curiosity, Zheng Tan calmly observed this celebrity who was quite popular with women. Perhaps he did not expect to be scrutinized so closely by a cat. The gaze that Gong Zixiao had hidden from the 3 children earlier was caught by Zheng Tan. From an angle that the 3 children could not see, when Gong Zixiao saw Zheng Tan, Demi, and Mao Dou, there was a flash of hostility in his eyes. Zheng Tan was very sensitive to this, so he did not doubt his eyesight. It seemed that Gong Zixiao's temperament was not as kind as he appeared to be. He was just pretending in front of others. Zheng Tan curled his lips and spat in disdain. This person obviously did not like cats and dogs, but he was still looking for an excuse. It did not matter. Zheng Tan did not like this star. No matter how bad his personality was, it had nothing to do with him. He just did not know how many female fans would be sad if his true temperament was exposed one day. Usually, no one comes here, so there's only black tea and water. Of course, there's also wine, but you're still young, so you can't drink that. Gong Zixiao brewed 3 cups of black tea and handed it to the 3 of them. "That's fine, thank you," Chu Leia said. "Sorry to disturb you so late at night." Now that they had calmed down, Fang Mengmeng felt that it was a little rude. "It's okay. It's rare to meet 3 little fans like you." "I'm very happy," Gong Zixiao said with a smile. At the same time, he took out 3 photos from a drawer, signed them, and handed them over. As for Ho Junyi, he pushed the photo back and said seriously, "Thank you for your generosity, but I'm sorry, I'm not your crazy fan." Fang Mengmeng, Chu Leia, and Gong Zixiao, this child was so straightforward that it made people want to beat him up. Zheng Tan noticed that the corner of Gong Zixiao's eyes twitched. Generally, many celebrities who made it big knew how to be patient. This was also one of the difficult aspects of being a celebrity. Even if they were wronged or angry, they had to endure it and try their best to show their best side in front of others. Therefore, Gong Zixiao did not look embarrassed or angry at all. Although Ho Junyi was there to spoil the atmosphere, it did not dampen the enthusiasm of the 2 little girls at all. When they found out that Gong Zixiao was exercising in his room, he did not hear the doorbell. When he came out to drink water, he heard it and immediately went to open the door. The two little girls' resentment of waiting outside the door for so long dissipated. So you were exercising. I heard that actors have to maintain their figures. Do you really have 8-pack abs? Do you really know how to fly a fighter jet? Do you really not use a stunt double for your action scenes? Gong Zishao did not show any impatience with the series of questions. He answered them one by one with a gentle look on his face. The pursuit of fans brought a lot of trouble to celebrities. However, if there were no fans, the celebrity's fame would probably not be that great. So, was this the legendary pain and happiness? Ho Junyi looked at Fang Mengmeng and Chu Leia and shook his head. He really could not understand. The IQ of these two crazy fans had plummeted to negative numbers. How could they fly a fighter jet? *T. How could they believe what they saw on TV? By the way, Gong Zishao, I heard that your next film is about urban zombies. I've seen the style in it. It's so cool. Chu Leia said with a red face. The three of them were talking about the new film starring Gong Zishao that would be released during this winter break. Ho Junyi coughed, intending to make his presence known. Actually, the so-called vampires and zombies don't exist. They're all stories adapted from the fantasy of Porphyria. They suck blood and eat human flesh, and they're afraid of light. Wasn't there a film some time ago where a Porphyria patient hid human organs in his refrigerator? As he said that, he glanced at the refrigerator beside him. Fang Mengmeng, Chu Leia, and Gong Zishao were speechless. Zheng Tan noticed the corner of Gong Zishao's eyes twitching again. Gong Zishao was silent for a few seconds. Then, he smiled, got up, walked to the refrigerator, and opened the large double doors. I don't have those scary things here. There was not much in the refrigerator. There were only some fresh-looking fruits in the freezer. When Gong Zishao took out the fruits for the three of them, closed the refrigerator door, and turned around, Ho Junyi spoke again. Have you heard of the refrigerator philosophy? The trash bin and refrigerator can reflect a person's attitude towards life. The things stored in decorations can reveal a person's personality. So, according to my deduction, Gong Zishao doesn't cook by himself. Chu Leia immediately defended himself. Gong Zishao is so busy. It's understandable that he doesn't have time to cook. Besides, there's a good saying, a gentleman stays away from the kitchen. It's a gentleman stays away from the kitchen. And it doesn't mean that he doesn't cook. It mainly means that he doesn't want to enter the kitchen because he can't bear to see someone kill. That's why my dad said that people who say such things are hypocritical and irresponsible hypocrites. They eat the meat in their bowl and complain that others are cruel. Fang Mengmeng, Chu Leia, and Gong Zishao were speechless. Anyone would think that he was scolding Gong Zishao for being hypocritical and irresponsible. Fang Mengmeng and Chu Leia wished they could go up and kick Ho Junyi. They really regretted bringing Ho Junyi along. They had embarrassed themselves in front of their idol. It was their first visit, and they had left a bad impression on him. Zheng Tan could almost see the group of troublesome children in the east courtyard. If Ho Junyi lived in the east courtyard, he believed that he would get along well with Zhao Yuan, Suan, and the others. Stubborn science guy. Chu Leia mumbled. You're wrong. I'm more inclined towards engineering. Science is different from engineering, Ho Junyi corrected her. Zheng Tan saw Gong Zishao looking down and rubbing his right thumb and index finger together. He had no idea what he was thinking. Perhaps Gong Zishao was unhappy with Ho Junyi's words. Looks like I'll have to learn how to cook in the future. Gong Zishao looked up and smiled at the three of them. Little Ho, you know a lot of things. You're also very observant. Zheng Tan did not know if he was overthinking, but he felt that Gong Zishao's last sentence had a deeper meaning. There was a heater in the house, but Zheng Tan suddenly felt a little cold. Ho Junyi was quite proud of himself. He looked around and pointed at the floor-to-ceiling window not far away. Is that the dimmer glass? Yes, little Ho even knows about this. How surprising, Gong Zishao said in a casual tone. Zheng Tan felt even colder. He was a little confused and felt that the atmosphere was not right. However, seeing that the three children were still the same, Zheng Tan wondered if he was overthinking and being paranoid. He looked around and saw some items of different sizes on a display shelf not far away. He heard that they were all gifts from fans. There were dolls, crystal items, commemorative shirts, and so on. Zheng Tan jumped onto the display shelf and saw a cat toy that looked like Huang's. He looked closer and saw a small note on it. It was a message from a fan. A photo of the display shelf had been published on the internet. It made the fans even more loyal to Gong Zishao. After all, it also showed how much their idol valued them. As he looked, Zheng Tan heard Gong Zishao talking to Fang Mengmeng and the others about cats. He sounded quite professional. Because I don't spend much time at home all year round, I don't have any pets like cats or dogs. By the way, I saw a dragonly cat on the wall of my house yesterday, but it didn't eat the food I gave it. Oh, there's another one. I saw it when I went home last week. It had a white tail and a black cat, but it ran away when I got close, Gong Zishao said. Fang Mengmeng frowned. I've never seen such a cat around my house. I don't know whose it is. Maybe I can find it and make friends with Dammy, Pa. Before Fang Mengmeng could finish her sentence, she heard the sound of something shattering on the display rack. She was shocked and looked over. Only then did she realize that a crystal cup on the display rack had fallen to the ground and shattered. At that moment, there was only a black cat standing on the display rack. I'm really sorry. I apologize to you on behalf of Black Charcoal. I'm willing to compensate. Fang Mengmeng looked at Gong Zishao nervously. She was afraid that he would be angry at Zheng Tan because of this. At the same time, she also asked Zheng Tan to quickly get down from the display shelf. Ignoring Fang Mengmeng's words, Zheng Tan felt a chill run down her spine. If the dragonly and the cat with a white body and a black tail that Gong Zishao had mentioned were Lotus Seed and Longan, this Gong Zishao was very likely problematic. It wasn't an illusion just now. Zheng Tan looked at Gong Zishao again. Before Zheng Tan could think more, he heard Edamame's cry. The four of them were too focused on their conversation and didn't notice Edamame, who had slipped away from Ho Junyi's feet and wandered around. Hearing Edamame's cry, Zheng Tan was keenly aware of the murderous aura that suddenly appeared on Gong Zishao's body. Dammy, who was originally obediently nestled next to Fang Mengmeng, was now staring at Gong Zishao. However, the three children didn't notice anything. When Edamame started to cry, Ho Junyi got up from the sofa and ran to the place where the sound came from. He was worried that Edamame would cause trouble in the house. This time, Dammy didn't join in the fun because of Edamame's cry. It stayed by Fang Mengmeng's feet and was very vigilant. Chapter 317. Fang Mengmeng and Chu Lea followed Ho Junyi in that direction. Demi followed closely beside Fang Mengmeng, Gong Zishao walked behind them, and Zheng Tan was at the back. Zheng Tan had a bad feeling about the conversation between Gong Zishao and Fang Mengmeng. He was so shocked that he accidentally knocked the crystal cup to the ground when he turned around. Before Zheng Tan could figure out how to deal with it, Edamame started barking. In order to observe Gong Zishao better and prevent him from suddenly doing anything threatening, Zheng Tan walked at the back and kept an eye on Gong Zishao. During their conversation, Gong Zishao had said that he was the only one in the house. Therefore, Gong Zishao was undoubtedly the most threatening person. What Zheng Tan needed to do now was to keep an eye on this person. Fortunately, Gong Zishao did not seem to care about Zheng Tan. He only paid attention to the three children running in front of him. When Zheng Tan went over, he saw Edamame at the end of the corridor on the first floor. There was a tightly shut door at the end of the corridor. The door probably led to the workshop. Beside the door was a metal shelf placed in a corner. At that moment, Edamame was roaring in front of the shelf. It seemed like there was something hidden under the shelf. From time to time, he would use his claws to scratch at the shelf. Zheng Tan had been paying attention to Gong Zishao's expression. After seeing Edamame's situation, Gong Zixiao's eyes flashed. He rubbed his right thumb and index finger together and then stuffed it into the pocket of his sports jacket. Seeing this, Jing Tan's heart skipped a beat. He was afraid that there was an offensive weapon in his pocket. Edamame. Ho Junyi ran over and tried to pick edamame up. However, edamame was very persistent under the shelf. When Ho Junyi came over to pick him up, he struggled a few times and knocked against the shelf. Aya! A rat! Chu Leia exclaimed. A rat about 10 centimeters long came out from under the shelf. When Chu Leia screamed, it quickly ran past her feet and disappeared from the living room where they were sitting. Clearly, it had found another place to hide. What a busybody. Chu Leia patted her chest. She was scared out of her wits when the rat ran past her feet. As for Mao Dou, they all knew that Ho Junyi's Mao Dou liked to catch mice very much. He had caught 3 mice in a year, so Ho Junyi once boasted that his Mao Dou was as good as several cats in other houses. However, on the second day after Ho Junyi showed off, Demi caught 5 large rats and placed them in front of Ho Junyi's house, giving Ho Junyi's mother a shock. So it's a rat. Fang Mengmeng was relieved and apologized to Gong Zixiao. She had originally said that she would take good care of the pets and not let them cause trouble, but in the end, such troublesome things happened one after another. It's all right, Gong Zixiao said with a smile. He didn't take out his right hand from his pocket. Hey, monkey, what are you still standing there for? Fang Mengmeng urged. Ho Junyi stood beside the shelf with edamame in his arms, as if he had lost his mind. After hearing Fang Mengmeng's words, Ho Junyi's body trembled and he slowly turned around. Strangely, when Ho Junyi turned around with edamame in his arms, his face was a little pale, as if he was frightened. What's wrong with you? Don't be afraid. Although edamame is a troublemaker, Gong Zixiao won't blame you. Look, Black Charcoal didn't even say anything when he broke something, Chu Leia comforted. Ho Junyi quickly glanced at Gong Zixiao, who was smiling, and opened his mouth to explain. He closed it again, hesitated, and then said, I want to go home. Chu Leia looked at the watch on her wrist. Actually, it wasn't even 9 o'clock yet. They usually discussed models until 9:30 before going home. She wanted to stay with her idol a little longer, so it was rare that they bumped into each other. Gong Zixiao smiled. When he was chatting with the 2 girls, he already knew the 3 children's daily schedule. Moreover, they didn't tell their family that they were coming over. It's 10 minutes to 9 o'clock. How about this? It's rare for you to come over, so I'll give you a signed DVD, Gong Zixiao said. Chu Leia and Fang Mengmeng's eyes lit up. Is it the one that won an award this year? In high definition? Do you still have DVDs of previous movies? We can buy them. I have money on me, Fang Mengmeng said. If you don't have enough money, can I pay by card? No need. Just take it as a gift from me. Oh, those are all upstairs. I'll take you upstairs to take a look. Take whichever you like, Gong Zixiao said. Okay. Seeing Fang Mengmeng and Chu Leia follow Gong Zixiao upstairs with faces full of anticipation, Ho Junyi hesitated for a moment. He put down edamame and quickly followed them. He was worried about his 2 companions. While going upstairs, Ho Junyi took out his cell phone from his pocket and was about to call home. However, when he took out his cell phone, he realized that there was no signal at all. Jing Tan followed Gong Zixiao upstairs while waiting for Ho Junyi. Therefore, when Fang Mengmeng and Chu Leia walked into the room with DVDs and posters that Gong Zixiao mentioned, Jing Tan did not go in. He waited for Ho Junyi in the corridor on the 2nd floor in front of the door. When Ho Junyi called Fang Mengmeng and Chu Leia's names and ran upstairs in a panic, Jing Tan heard a bang. He turned around and saw that the door to the room that Fang Mengmeng and Chu Leia had just entered was closed. Gong Zixiao was standing at the door, watching Ho Junyi run upstairs. You. What are you trying to do? Ho Junyi said as he looked at the closed door. Gong Zixiao stood there with an indifferent expression on his face. He looked at Ho Junyi and said, Can you tell me what you discovered just now, smart boy? let us go home. If we can't go home by 9:30, you'll be in trouble. Ho Junyi said. This was the truth. Usually, if the three children were not home after 9:30, the parents of the three families would call each other to ask about it. Gong Zixiao's face turned cold. So, little boy, you'd better be obedient. Gong Zixiao walked towards Ho Junyi. He did not expect the three children to come over today, and they kept pressing the doorbell. Before he opened the door, he saw the three people outside through the camera and the anti-theft eye. As for the three pets, perhaps it was because of the angle, he did not notice them until he opened the door. He always thought that children were easy to fool. He just needed to prevent the dog from discovering anything. However, he did not expect the kid with the surname Ho to know so much. It seemed that the kid had discovered something. Sometimes, the more you know, the more dangerous it is. Seeing Gong Zixiao walking towards him, Ho Junyi threw the phone in his hand at him. He did not even check if it hit the target. He turned around and ran downstairs. Mao Dou, who did not know what happened, followed Ho Junyi downstairs. Gong Zixiao dodged the phone that was thrown at him and chased after him. Zheng Tan put his ear to the door and listened carefully to the movements of Fang Mengmeng and Mao Dou, who were locked in the room. They seemed to be quite energetic, so they should be safe for the time being. He also ran downstairs. He did not know what Ho Junyi had discovered that made Gong Zixiao expose himself. When Gong Zixiao first entered the door, he showed hesitation and frowned as if he was in a difficult situation. It was probably an act for the three children to see, so that they would take the initiative to protect the three pets. Why did this person not want to see the dog and the cat? Was he afraid that something that should not be exposed would be discovered by the pets with a sensitive sense of smell? Fang Mengmeng and Mao Dou, who were locked in the room, also realized that something was wrong. The door could not be opened, and the only tall window was tightly shut. The glass was too hard to break. They did not know what material it was made of. The originally transparent window seemed to be separated by a thick layer of fog. This was the light-adjusting glass that Ho Junyi had mentioned before. It could be made transparent and could also be used to block vision. What drove them crazy was that all the lights in the room had been turned off. Fang Mengmeng wanted to try the method that her father had taught her to use the light switch to send an SOS signal for help. Now, it seemed that it was not necessary. Their bags were still in the living room on the first floor. They did not bring their mobile phones with them. The only thing they could use was the key ring that Fang Mengmeng always carried with her. There was a mini flashlight that was the size of a pen cap on it. Using this to send an SOS signal? It seemed a little difficult, and the effect would definitely not be good. Seeing that the window could not be broken, Fang Mengmeng decided to change her strategy. After looking around with the mini flashlight, she set her eyes on the louvered vent on the wall. However, this vent seemed to be too small. Even if they smashed the vent open, they might not be able to squeeze in. They also did not know where this vent led to. After all, they were only two children. Although they were very scared and could not think of any good ideas at the moment, it was still much better than other children who only knew how to cry. Chu Leia followed Fang Mengmeng and smashed the vent with something as she screamed for help. However, the people outside the house might not be able to hear their screams. The soundproofing was very good, to begin with. In addition, there was a world-famous song playing outside the house. Although the sound was not loud, it was just enough to cover the soft cries coming from inside the house. On the other side, Ho Junyi, who had run downstairs, wanted to quickly call for help to save his two companions. However, when he went downstairs, he realized that both the windows and the door could not be opened. The huge floor-to-ceiling windows were all tightly shut and blurred, isolating the house from the outside world. Ho Junyi ran towards the living room, hoping to find something that could help. However, he was too scared. In his hurry, he did not notice that there was another person who was running from the door to the living room. He staggered and fell. When he looked back, he saw that Gong Zixiao, who was holding a golf club, was less than 3 meters away from him. His pupils constricted, and his smart mind went blank. If Gong Zixiao took 2 more steps forward, he would be able to catch the kid who was causing him trouble. However, at that moment, he suddenly felt someone grabbing his clothes from behind and flinging him to the side. It was too sudden. Gong Zixiao did not expect anyone to be behind him. All his attention was on Ho Junyi and the dog beside him, so he did not take any precautions against the person behind him. Bang! Chapter 318. After kicking Gong Zixiao to the ground, Jing Tan kicked him twice more, making him unable to stand up. Then, he stepped on his face, jumped to the side, and kicked the golf club that had been separated from Gong Zixiao's hand towards Ho Junyi. When Edamame saw Jing Tan kicking Gong Zixiao, it rushed up and bit Gong Zixiao's leg. Of course, compared to Niu Zhuangzhuang, Edamame was considered gentle. It was not as bloody as the time when Niu Zhuangzhuang bit the thief. After the bite, the dog was probably not used to biting people. Then, it turned to gnaw on Gong Zixiao's trousers and shoes. Finally, it found some feeling and started to bite more vigorously. After Jing Tan jumped to the side, he saw that Ho Junyi was still in a daze. There was no reaction at all, and Ho Junyi was staring straight at Jing Tan. Jing Tan immediately glared. F***ck, is this kid scared silly? I already kicked him down and kicked the golf club to you. Why don't you pick up the golf club and hit the enemy? Don't you know what it means to take advantage of your weakness to take your life? You haven't fought before, right? Jing Tan would never have thought that when he kicked Gong Zixiao, what appeared in Ho Junyi's mind was not confusion, nor was it saved, nor was it because he was scared silly as Jing Tan thought. Instead, it was a diagram of the breakdown of force. Moreover, according to Gong Zixiao's reaction and movements, it estimated the approximate amount of force used by Jing Tan. It was precisely because of this that Ho Junyi was stunned. Because the result did not conform to common sense. How could a cat have so much strength? After calculating it once, it recalculated it twice, and the result was the same all 3 times. Unbelievable, dumbfounded. Little Ho Junyi's mind was currently running like a herd of alpacas. If Jing Tan knew what Ho Junyi was thinking, he would definitely run up and give him a few kicks. F***ck, at such a tense moment, this kid actually had the time to do a physical and mechanical analysis. Did he learn to be stupid? However, Ho Junyi soon came to his senses after hearing Edamame's roar. He looked at Gong Zixiao, who was struggling to stand up, and picked up the golf club with trembling hands. When Gong Zixiao looked at him with red eyes, Ho Junyi gritted his teeth and swung the club. Bang! The big star was hit on the head, and tragically fainted. Seeing this, Ho Junyi was very scared. He was afraid that he would knock someone to death. After waiting for a while and seeing that the person lying on the ground did not respond, he trembled and moved closer. He put his finger on Gong Zixiao's wrist to feel her pulse and then let out a long sigh. Luckily, he was only fainted, and no one died. This should be counted as his self-defense, right? Edamame was still biting Gong Zixiao's trousers, shaking its head and tearing it apart. It made a low whining sound in response to Gong Zixiao's kicks. But now, even if it bit his pants, it wouldn't have any attack power. No matter how hard he tried, no one would kick him. Gong Zixiao's coma temporarily eased the atmosphere, and Ho Junyi's tense nerves relaxed a little. However, when he thought of what he had seen and guessed at the end of the corridor on the first floor, he was worried. He really wanted to leave this place. Jing Tan ignored Ho Junyi's conflicted emotions. After Ho Junyi knocked Gong Zixiao out, he nodded with satisfaction. Then, he jumped up and stepped on Gong Zixiao's face, which attracted countless girls and women. Seeing that there was no reaction and that Gong Zixiao had really fainted, he moved closer and reached his hand into Gong Zixiao's pocket. He was very curious about what was in Gong Zixiao's pocket and why his hand was always in there. Now that he took it out, he found that it was a small remote control. Could it be a button that controlled some functions in this house? For example, windows, doors, and so on. Many rich people's houses started to be smart. When Jing Tan was still a human, he had seen some people's houses using smart design. Gong Zixiao's house was probably similar, right? The remote control was full of characters and some patterns. Zheng Tan could not understand them. He pressed it twice and did not find anything unusual, so he ignored it. Ho Junyi, who was panting and trembling, saw the remote control. His eyes lit up and he picked it up with his free hand. Zheng Tan planned to go up to the second floor to check on Fang Mengmeng and the rest. He stopped in his tracks and moved his ears, carefully distinguishing some sounds. Then, he ran to the huge floor-to-ceiling window and listened carefully. He confirmed that it was Demi's cry. The cry was different from usual. Many people probably had not heard Demi cry out like that. However, Zheng Tan felt that it was familiar. After thinking for a while, he suddenly remembered that Demi's cry was similar to the way Black Rice used to summon cats. Although the cry did not sound exactly the same, Zheng Tan felt that it was very similar. Perhaps this was an ability that was inherited from the mother. Others could not learn it, but Demi did not need to learn it. It was like cheating. The natural world was full of strange things. There were many things that made people envious and jealous. At the same time, Zheng Tan had to sigh again. This family's genes were really King awesome. While Zheng Tan was thinking, the other residents near this house who had cats and could hear the cats cry began to have abnormal reactions. They cried out and wanted to run out. In Fang Mengmeng's room on the second floor, the two of them worked together to smash the louvered vent and let Demi escape through the vent. Fang Mengmeng even took off the bow on her head and let Demi carry it to find help. She had seen this on TV before. But in fact, the other end of the vent was blocked by something. Demi could not get out at all. However, if it cried out here, it could be heard loudly from outside. It would not be covered by the music that was playing. As it cried out, it created an effect that Fang Mengmeng did not expect. Zheng Tan stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and thought for a while. Then, he planned to go back to the second floor. At this time, Ho Junyi fiddled with the remote control and figured out something. After pressing a few buttons, the originally blurry floor-to-ceiling window suddenly became transparent. There was only some water vapor attached to it. Zheng Tan wiped it and found that on the other side of the glass window, there were a few cats. There was Lotus Seed, Longan, and the forest cat that he had not seen for a long time. It seemed that they had been trained by Ah Wu. Since they could hear Demi's cry, it was obvious that they were not far from here. This also proved that there was something wrong with Gong Zishao, and it was not a small problem. In addition to these familiar-looking cats, there were also cats from nearby households. Most of them seemed to be expensive cat breeds, and they even had cat tags on them. Regardless of whether they were ordinary or expensive cats, they were all howling and wandering around the house at the moment. With such an abnormal phenomenon and movement, it was believed that the people nearby would come over. Zheng Tan had already seen Ho Junyi's father running over. Originally, Ho Junyi's father was smoking outside the door and waiting for Ho Junyi. He did not expect to hear Demi's cry. Although the sounds sounded different from usual, they were familiar with Demi and could associate it with Demi. Moreover, the sound came from the house next door. The two houses were about 10 meters apart. Ho Junyi's father walked over and looked into the yard. He found several cats in the yard and other cats that he knew lived in the nearby residents' houses. It was a very strange phenomenon. Ho Junyi's father pressed the doorbell and found that no one opened the door. He realized that something was wrong and called Ho Junyi, but there was no response. Therefore, Ho Junyi's father contacted the parents of the other two families. When he found out that none of the three children had been seen, he directly called the police. The security in charge of this residential area also rushed over. Although Ho Junyi used the remote control to make the dimmer glass transparent, he could not find the correct button and solution for the door of the room upstairs. Perhaps there were other input instructions. He scratched his ears and cheeks anxiously for a while. After hearing the knocking on the glass window, he looked up and saw the people outside the glass window. Ho Junyi, who had been nervous, almost burst into tears. He kept patting the floor-to-ceiling window. Through a layer of glass, Ho Junyi's father was quite worried after seeing his son's appearance. Without waiting for the police and security to come, he ran home to get the tools. Zheng Tan did not know what tools Ho Junyi's father was holding. He just followed Ho Junyi back and found shelter. Then, the next moment, he saw that the floor-to-ceiling window was all broken. It did not explode everywhere, only falling in the area of the floor-to-ceiling window. By the time the police and security rushed over, Ho Junyi's father had already used the tools to cut open the door on the second floor. Looking at Ho Junyi's father, who was wearing work clothes and gloves and holding a set of tools, Zheng Tan thought that these people were too tough. When Fang Mengmeng and Chu Leia came out, other than being a little surprised, they were in good health. They only had some scratches on their hands, which were not serious injuries. The parents accompanied and comforted them. After all, they were still children. After experiencing such things, they did not know if it would leave a psychological shadow. The parents were thinking about how to get rid of the negative emotions that might affect the children. Zheng Tan looked around. Lotus Seed and Longan had disappeared. Ah Wu was probably nearby. Now that there were more people here, it called them back. The police and security did not think that these cats would be of any use. They watched them leave and did not stop them. The people who lived in this area were either rich or powerful. After such a big incident, the police would definitely be very busy. Who would pay attention to those cats? When the police car arrived, it made a lot of noise. The unconscious Gong Zixiao was taken away. In addition, Zheng Tan saw the police carry out a long object wrapped in a black bag. Zheng Tan sniffed it and smelled a faint smell of blood in the wind. The three children were accompanied by their parents and did not see the situation over there. This was good. Otherwise, they would probably be even more traumatized if they saw it. Chapter 319. If the key to this incident was Zheng Tan taking the lead by surprise and kicking Gong Zixiao out, then Demi's actions directly sped up the end of the crisis. Without Demi's howl, it would not have caused such a big commotion, and the people around might not have been able to react so quickly. Fang Mengmeng hugged Demi and sat next to her mother. Zheng Tan did not go over. He was worried. At that time, he was only focused on getting rid of Gong Zixiao, so he did not have time to hide. Now that he thought about it, Zheng Tan realized that Ho Junyi looked at him suspiciously. After coming out of the house, Ho Junyi calmed down and told a police officer about the whole incident. He even glanced at Zheng Tan a few times. Other than the police officers who were handling the case outside, the three children and their parents were temporarily staying at Ho Junyi's house. Why was Ho Junyi the one telling the story? Because among the three children, he was the first to calm down. Ho Junyi was accompanied by his father and told them about the incident. Fang Mengmeng and Chu Leia were resting in another room, so they could not hear what Ho Junyi said. Zheng Tan was still worried. He moved closer and hid behind a cabinet to eavesdrop on their conversation. At that time, Mao Dou found the mouse. I went over to pull it back, but it bumped into the shelf. I saw blood stains on the wall behind the shelf. It wasn't much, but the color didn't look like it was from a long time ago. It was relatively new. Moreover, the color and traces on the wall showed that it used to be a shorter and wider object. The shelf was moved over later, and it was just enough to block the blood stains on the wall. I also smelled something like bleach. There was no signal on the phone. Ho Junyi spoke intermittently, but the rules were still clear. His voice also trembled a little. His father patted him on the back, which comforted Ho Junyi's emotions that had started to fluctuate again because of his narration. However, when Ho Junyi was telling the story, both the police officer and Ho Junyi's father, who was accompanying him, twitched their faces a few times. The former felt that the child knew too much and was very observant. Moreover, he was able to notice things that many adults might not notice. He was not like a child at all. The latter, on the other hand, felt that while their child had the halo of a genius on his head, there was also a retard stamp on his head. Perhaps in the eyes of many people, Ho Junyi was a retard. It was true that he had a higher IQ than others and knew more things. However, when it came to dealing with people, he could be said to be childish. Sometimes, his words could drive people crazy. Father Ho had received more than one phone call from the school teachers complaining. Ho Junyi's narration was quite detailed, from the moment he entered young Master Zhao's house to the moment he left. Mr. Ho saw a very serious problem from his narration. Although he had always thought that it would be better when the child grew up, he had to solve this problem now. Otherwise, he was afraid that something similar would go wrong in the future. However, there were some details that were left out. No matter how the police officer and Father Ho asked, Ho Junyi refused to say anything. For example, the part where Jingtan kicked Gong Zixiao. Jingtan eavesdropped anxiously and found that Ho Junyi didn't sell him out. Only then did he feel relieved. Before, he didn't find this kid pleasing to the eye, but now he found that this kid was still okay. "Dad, did I do something wrong?" Ho Junyi looked like he was about to cry. He wasn't stupid. After thinking about it, he realized that many times, it was his fault that Fang Mengmeng and Chu Leo were in danger. Seeing Ho Junyi's expression, Father Ho didn't ask any more questions. He waved at the police officer, indicating that he could leave. Then, he began to comfort Ho Junyi. After all, he was only a child. You couldn't expect him to take care of everything. As for those problems, Father Ho decided to take it slow and solve the problem at hand first. Fang Xiaokong arrived early the next morning. When he received the call, he was busy in another province. After learning about it, he bought the earliest flight and flew over. Jingtan saw that he was really angry this time. Since the incident, no one had come to look for Jingtan. However, this might only be temporary. It was also because Ho Junyi hadn't sold Jingtan out. Jingtan kept thinking about Mao's words. Wu was around last night, so he should be able to find him. Although Ho Junyi didn't tell Jingtan out, Gong Zixiao was still there and his injuries were still there. If they really wanted to pursue the matter, they might be able to link it to Jingtan. However, after getting a guarantee from Fang Xiaokong, Jingtan was relieved. The matter here was handed over to Fang Xiaokong. In order to avoid some other problems, Fang Xiaokong decided to let Tong Qingdi send Jingtan back to Chuhua City the day before. This was also what Jingtan was willing to do. He always felt uneasy staying here. He was afraid that he would be dragged to join Wu's team. Before leaving, Jingtan heard Fang Xiaokong talking to someone about this matter. It turned out that the person Lotus Seed and Longan were following was not Gong Zixiao, but the person who was killed by Gong Zixiao. Of course, Gong Zixiao was also involved. According to the conversation, Gong Zixiao was involved in a lot of things, including prostitution, gambling, and drugs. He even had a murder case. He probably received some news and knew that the higher-ups were investigating something. After returning to his residence, he observed for 2 days. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he didn't want to give up the things he earned. After the suspect went to find Gong Zixiao, the two had an argument. The former directly suffered a tragedy. As for Gong Zixiao, someone tipped him off. When he found that the situation was not right, he was ready to pack up and leave. He didn't expect to receive an unexpected guest when he was busy packing up and leaving. In order not to give himself away, Gong Zixiao disguised himself very well. However, he didn't expect that the boy surnamed Ho to know so much. Moreover, he clearly didn't know how to observe people's expressions, but he could find problems that others didn't notice. He said that he really didn't want to kill. He just wanted to lock up the 3 children first and wait for him to escape, the person who spoke to Fang Xiaokong said. But he didn't guarantee that there wouldn't be other dangers to their lives, such as hunger, thirst, or mental stress. Those are only children. Moreover, when people act impulsively, anything is possible. Maybe one of the children will become a hostage or something else unexpected, Fang Xiaokong said as he smoked. He was telling the person in front of him that he was going to investigate this matter. There were also a few people involved, as well as the person who tipped off Gong Zixiao. None of them would be able to escape. I know what you mean. The person finished speaking and left. Fang Xiaokong knocked on the table with one hand, took a puff of his cigarette, and put it out in the ashtray. He took his coat and walked out. Black charcoal, I owe you a favor this time. Fang Xiaokang's heart was clear. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in a hurry to send Jingtan away. Temporarily avoiding this matter was also a form of protection for Jingtan. Jingtan jumped into the car. He had already packed everything and was waiting for Tong Qing to come. Just now, Tong Qing was called over by Fang Xiaokang to give him some instructions. After a while, Tong Qing came back. He opened the car door and was about to get in when he heard a voice behind him. Wait a minute. Jingtan looked over and saw Ho Junyi running over with a small suitcase in his hand. Ho Junyi's complexion was not bad. His family must have counseled him. But, why is this kid carrying a suitcase over? Ho Junyi's forehead was covered in sweat from running. After he came over, he folded the drawbar and rollers on the suitcase and put it away. Now, it looked like a suitcase. The suitcase was a little heavy, and Ho Junyi had a hard time carrying it. Tong Qing helped him carry it and then looked at Ho Junyi in confusion. Ho Junyi pointed at the suitcase, then looked at Jingtan and said, "Thank you. It's just a thank you gift." When Ho Junyi looked at the suitcase, he was still reluctant to part with it. It was obvious that this kid treasured the suitcase a lot, but Jingtan did not know how to reject it and could not say anything. Without waiting for Jingtan to reject it, and Tong Qing did not know what to say, Ho Junyi had already run back home. When Ho Junyi returned home, his parents were there. Because of what had just happened, they had taken leave to accompany and comfort the children. The 3 children had taken leave and did not go to school. "What did you go out for?" Father Ho asked. He saw Ho Junyi carrying his small treasure chest out, but now he came back empty-handed. "Sending a thank you gift." Ho Junyi changed his shoes and answered. "You gave that to Fang Mengmeng? Would a girl like that?" In Father Ho's heart, the key was to me. If he wanted to thank someone, he would naturally thank Fang Mengmeng. "Oh. What?" Ho Junyi was puzzled. "Your treasure chest. Didn't you go to Fang Mengmeng's house and give her the suitcase?" Father Ho was puzzled. Did he guess wrongly? No, it wasn't Fang Mengmeng. "Dad, you said yesterday that a life-saving grace should be repaid with a spring. At the very least, I should thank her generously. So I gave the suitcase to Black Charcoal." "Black Charcoal?" Father Ho's face froze. "If I didn't understand wrongly, that was a cat. You gave your precious suitcase to a cat?" Ho Junyi looked at his father with a puzzled expression. He felt that he had explained it clearly enough. Why was he still asking? "Son, I think we should have a good talk." Father Ho rubbed his eyebrows helplessly. "Thank her generously." In Ho Junyi's heart, that treasure chest was indeed very valuable. Many things could not be easily bought outside. In fact, it was really expensive. However, those things were not the only ones. If he really wanted to get more, Father Ho could help Ho Junyi get them. He was just worried about how to adjust Ho Junyi's thinking and way of thinking to a normal level. At that moment, in the car heading to Chuhua City, Tong Qing was still driving silently. Jingtan was looking through the suitcase that Ho Junyi gave him in the back seat. "Thank you gift?" Jingtan knew that Ho Junyi was thanking him for his help at a critical moment. However, it was the first time Jingtan had met someone who gave him a toolbox as a thank you gift. The suitcase had a password lock. The password had been unlocked long ago and could be reset. However, what made Jingtan even happier was the things in the suitcase. Although Jingtan had not seen many of them and did not understand what they were for, he knew a few of them. Jingtan took a metal square that looked like a bank card. He folded it twice and turned it into a knife. When he folded it back, it returned to the size of a card. These were all good things. Jingtan was overjoyed. Chapter 320. Back in Chuhua City, Jingtan felt much more comfortable. He slept soundly, probably because he was less stressed. Ho Junyi's treasure chest, Jingtan, was under little Pomelo's bed. The room was too small, so there wasn't much space to put it, so he had to put it under the bed. 2 days after returning to Chuhua City, Jingtan secretly turned on his computer and surfed the internet when no one was home. He looked up news about Gong Zixiao and found that there weren't many reports about this person recently. There were only 2 entertainment programs that originally invited Gong Zixiao, but later changed the host, which caused dissatisfaction among Gong Zixiao's fans. However, it seemed that there weren't many real reports about Gong Zixiao yet. Most people probably didn't know that Gong Zixiao had been taken away by the police. Moreover, Jing Tan speculated that Gong Zixiao's acting career would probably come to an end. In addition to surfing the internet, Jing Tan also paid attention to the newspapers that the Jiao family subscribed to. Although there weren't any specialized entertainment newspapers, some of the current affairs newspapers had 1 or 2 pages of entertainment news. Jing Tan also paid attention to the news over there. However, Jing Tan was only free for 2 days before he was kidnapped to the pet center by Xiaoguo. Looking at Xiaoguo's dark circles, Jing Tan didn't get angry at Xiaoguo's kidnapping this time. It wasn't easy. Previously, Jing Tan had been away for a month to shoot a documentary, and 2 cats had been borrowed from the pet center to shoot a movie. When the pet center was shooting the Christmas special, they found that not only was Zhang Ziyan absent, but even the 2 important supporting roles were also absent. The effect was definitely much worse. Many people had already complained on the internet, and there were all kinds of speculations. However, because they had signed a confidentiality agreement, the people in the pet center couldn't tell the truth before they got permission from the film crew. Therefore, the gossip became more and more intense. Some people even came to the pet center to find Xiaoguo. Mr. Guo hadn't slept well for a long time. Because of this, when he knew that Jing Tan was back, he immediately rushed over. This was the result that the Jiao Pa had concealed for 2 days. Otherwise, Xiaoguo would have kidnapped Jing Tan the day he came back to clear the rumors. Fortunately, a few days before shooting the New Year special, the cats in the movie were almost ready. Xiaoguo took them over to shoot with him. This way, those who wanted to see the world burn could shut their mouths. In addition to shooting the New Year special in the pet center, Jing Tan had something on his mind. The bag of diamonds was hot. He was just a cat now. What did he need these diamonds for? Although it was worth a lot of money, to Jing Tan, it was a hot potato that could not be taken out in public. Giving it away would only bring trouble to others. Therefore, Jing Tan was thinking about when to return the bag of diamonds. Anyway, the Jiao family's living conditions were not bad. Jing Tan's salary had increased because of the documentary and the New Year special in the pet center. As long as it was enough, Jing Tan would not be able to use it. Keeping the diamonds would make him feel uncomfortable. After making the decision, Jing Tan thought about how to get the diamonds to Tang Mo yesterday. Jing Tan heard Xiaoguo talking to Tang Mo on the phone. He knew that Tang Mo was living in a hotel. When Jing Tan was away, Tang Mo also went abroad. He had just returned a few days ago. Jing Tan also knew about the 5-star hotel that Xiaoguo mentioned. It was not too far from Tsinghua University. Jing Tan could accept it. Xiaoguo said on the phone that he would go over to discuss the cooperation with Tang Mo at around 7:00 on Friday night. This time, the New Year special would broadcast a jewelry advertisement of Tang Mo's company. As for the details, Xiaoguo would go over to talk about it in detail. Tang Mo would return to the hotel around 6:00 on Friday night. On Saturday morning, he had to fly to the other side of the ocean. There was an urgent matter there, so time was tight. Friday, which was tomorrow. Since he knew the approximate time, Jing Tan thought about how to return the diamonds. Should he throw them away together with the bag? Jing Tan did not want to because the bag was stained with the cat fur that Jing Tan had dropped. If he returned them just like that, Jing Tan did not know if they would find out that he was the one who stole the diamonds. Just as she was thinking about it, Jing Tan suddenly heard a sound. She turned to look and saw that it was the sound of a paper bag being blown against a tree trunk by the wind. Paper bag? Jing Tan walked over. It was already night time, and there were not many people walking around. No one would notice Jing Tan in the bushes. It was the paper bag used by stalls at the school entrance. Jing Tan had seen similar ones before. This paper bag did not have any oil stains on it. It was obvious that it had not been used before. The first line on the paper bag read, "Domestic pizza." The second line read, "Wutaro sesame cake." Jing-tan stared at the word "Thai" for a long time. Was this King counterfeit? There was a sudden gust of wind today, and many plastic bags were blown away. This paper bag might have been blown here too. After walking towards the school gate for a while, Jing-tan found a few more paper bags that had not been used before. This confirmed Jing-tan's guess. Jing-tan found the cleanest paper bag that was not stained with water and took it to the old tile-roofed housing area. It was night time anyway. As long as Jing-tan was careful, no one would notice this two-legged cat running away. He took the paper bag back to the house in the old tile-roofed housing area where the diamonds and cell phones were hidden. He carefully poured the bag of diamonds in and looked to make sure that there was no cat hair left. He shook the paper bag with the diamonds so that the diamonds fell into a corner at the bottom of the paper bag. He folded the rest of the paper bag and carefully rolled it around the bottom corner to prevent the diamonds from easily piercing the paper bag and falling out. Finally, he folded the extra part of the paper bag into the crevice. After thinking about it, Jing-tan came out of the house and ran to the houses where the student clubs often held activities. There was a house with a window that was not closed. Jing-tan climbed in and looked around. He found a small piece of pencil that he had not used for a long time. He did not find anything else that he could use, so he climbed out of the house and returned to the place where the diamonds were placed. He bent his paw and held the pencil to write a few words on the paper bag. It was not easy for a cat to hold a pencil with its paw. Jing-tan had not written for a long time, so he could not bear to look at it after he finished writing. The next day, which was Friday, Jing-tan did not wait for dinner at home. He wore his vest and sneaked out with the diamonds. Night fell earlier in winter. It started to get dark at 6:00. When Jing-tan ran to the hotel through a few hidden paths, the sky was completely dark. Jing-tan did not know what time it was. He thought that if he did not meet anyone today, he would have to wait for the next time. Unexpectedly, Jing-tan's luck was pretty good today. When she arrived at the entrance of the hotel and hid behind a flower bed, she saw a car slowly stop in front of the hotel. Tang Imo came out of the car with two people beside him. They were probably bodyguards or something. Seeing Tang Imo walk towards the entrance, Jing-tan quickly took out the things in his vest and threw them at Tang Imo. After throwing it away, Jing-tan quickly changed her hiding spot. She hid behind a pine tree and looked in that direction. Before the things Jing-tan threw could hit Tang Imo, they were blocked by one of the people beside Tang Imo. The things fell to the ground not far away from them. One of them stood guard beside Tang Imo and looked around cautiously. The other person walked over to take a look at the things Tang Imo threw at him. He poked a hole in the paper bag and saw a corner of it. The person's expression changed and he quickly brought it to Tang Imo. "Boss, look." Tang Imo took it. He did not need to look at the whole thing. He only needed to see a corner. Even though the lighting was not good, he could tell that this was probably what he had lost. Other than that, Tom took a closer look at the paper bag that could be considered to be of poor quality. The paper bag was folded, and the words "Wutaro sesame cake" could not be seen yet. However, the words on the bag were clearly written in crooked pencil. "Don't ask who I am. Please call me Red Scarf." Tang Imo was speechless. Tang Imo felt that since he came to Chuhua City, he had encountered many strange things. Jing-tan watched Tang Imo walk into the hotel with the things before leaving. Before Tang Mo's bodyguard noticed him, Jing-tan had already left. The bodyguard who was ordered by Tang Imo to look for the person who threw the things would never have thought that it was a cat who did it. In the next few days, Jing-tan paid attention to the surroundings of the school, especially the sesame cake cellar. Previously, Jing-tan did not think too much about it. Now that he thought about it, he wondered if it would bring trouble to the sesame cake seller. After paying special attention, Jing-tan managed to find out some information about the person selling sesame seed cakes. He had always thought that the "Thai" in Wutaro was a typographical error or someone who specialized in selling pirated sesame cakes. Later, when he overheard the peddler's gossip, he found out that the sesame cake seller was called Wu Tai. He was a laid-off worker with a slight limp. He was a good person and was quite honest. The peddlers and students who sold sesame cakes had a good impression of him. Sometimes, when someone gave him too much money, he would limp over to get the extra money back. He did not know how his leg was injured. When he walked, it was obvious that he was limping. It was said that the injury had been there for many years. It could not be cured, and there was no money to treat it. It was also said that Wu Tai's wife ran away with someone else, leaving behind 2 older children. With the meager subsistence allowance, he looked like he was in his 40s despite being in his 30s. Wu Tai learned how to make sesame cakes from others. He heard that the business around the university was good, so he reluctantly gathered some equipment and set up a stall to do business with the students. His skills were good, he was a good person, and the ingredients he used were solid. The business was good. Then, one day, Wu Tai suddenly disappeared. He disappeared for 2 days straight. Many students felt that it was a pity. It was rare to find a sesame cake that was to their liking. Zheng Tan also wondered if Tang Mo was looking for trouble with Wu Tai. He wanted to ask around, but 2 days later, Wu Tai appeared at the school gate again. He was not injured and looked very energetic. It seemed that something good had happened to him. Since Wu Tai was fine, Zheng Tan thought that there was nothing unusual on his side. He also went to the pet center and did not hear anything unusual. So he was relieved. When he walked back briskly, Zheng Tan accidentally heard a conversation between 2 middle school students who had just returned from school. I heard that Gu Yuzi, who got first place in the midterm exam, knows someone from the underworld. No way. I heard that her boyfriend is from the underworld. Zheng Tan wanted to eavesdrop more, but the 2 students had already gone far away on their bikes. Underworld? Boyfriend? Why didn't I know? What the hell happened when I was on a business trip in Beijing for a month? Chapter 321. It had been a while since Zheng Tan last visited little Pomelo's school. After returning from Beijing, he had slept in for a few consecutive days. He hadn't accompanied little Pomelo and Jiao Ma out in the morning. Now that he thought about it, it had been more than a month since he last visited. More than a month was enough for many unexpected things to happen. As Zheng Tan ran home, she pondered over the events of the past few days since she had returned from the capital. Something wasn't right. Little Pomelo didn't seem to be acting strangely these few days. After returning home, she spent most of her time doing exercises. After all, it was almost the end of the semester. It was understandable that she didn't have any abnormalities in her eating and sleeping schedule. If what the 2 junior high students had said was true, then Jiao Ma wouldn't have been completely unresponsive. However, Zheng Tan had a nagging feeling in his heart. Jiao Ma might not know. After all, some rumors between students might not reach the ears of teachers. At night, Zheng Tan deliberately observed little Pomelo, but he still didn't find anything unusual. Therefore, Zheng Tan decided to wake up early the next morning and go out with Jiao Ma and little Pomelo. This year's winter seemed to be colder than usual. Zheng Tan shivered after leaving the house, then jogged after little Pomelo and Jiao Ma. It didn't feel as cold when he jogged after them. Jiao Ma rode her scooter to school first, while little Pomelo met up with her classmates in the Western District courtyard. Then, the 3 of them rode to school together. The 3 girls wore hats, scarves, and thick gloves, but the cold didn't dampen their mood to chat. Zheng Tan ran not far behind them, perking up his ears to eavesdrop on their conversation. At first, they were talking about a TV series. Zheng Tan had watched a few episodes, but he didn't think it was very interesting. However, the male lead was very popular with the girls. When they were almost at school, Xia Xian thought for a moment and said to little Pomelo, "Pomelo, are we really not going to care about those rumors? I think the rumors are getting more and more ridiculous." Zheng Tan was looking elsewhere, but after hearing Xia Xian's words, his ears perked up. He stopped looking around and stared at little Pomelo. "Don't worry about it. Let them spread it." Little Pomelo's attitude was rather cold, as if she didn't care at all. This made Zheng Tan feel a lot better. It seemed that it was just a rumor. According to what Xia Xian and the others said, it seemed that someone was not convinced that little Pomelo was the top student in the midterm exam, so they spread some rumors. However, Jingtan glanced at little Pomelo. Unknowingly, the little girl from back then had become a young girl. She was good-looking, and most importantly, she was good at her studies. In high school, people with good grades were always particularly favored by the opposite sex. After pondering all the way to school, Jingtan watched as little Pomelo and the others parked their car and walked into the school building to sit down. Although little Pomelo asked Jingtan to go back quickly, as it was cold outside, Jingtan did not leave immediately. Instead, he stood on the wall near little Pomelo's class and watched for a while. He noticed that a few of the boys were looking at little Pomelo with a gaze that made him want to beat them up, but none of them were particularly close to little Pomelo. He could tell just by looking at little Pomelo's attitude. The glass windows were gradually blurred by the steam. Jingtan did not stay there and walked along the wall. He wanted to wait until class was over to see if the other classes were paying attention to this. Jingtan walked along the wall, past the school building area, past the cafeteria, and then to the field. At this time, there were not many people on the field. Especially now that the weather was cold and it was nearing the end of the semester, there were even fewer people running outside. There were not many students and teachers. As he walked, Jingtan's head was hit. It did not hurt, as it was thrown by something like a paper ball. After the paper ball hit Jingtan's head, it jumped to the ground, bringing with it the smell of fried buns. Looking in the direction where it was thrown, Jingtan saw a familiar person. Black charcoal? After the person saw Jingtan, she ran over with a bright smile. Then, she squatted at the foot of the wall and waved at Jingtan. Jingtan's eyes widened. Why was this girl here? Wasn't she still in primary school last month? Now she was in middle school? The person who came was little Jiu, who followed the blind old man, Master Kuan. However, Jingtan always thought that little Jiu was still in primary school. Because of her tragic experience, this child came to school late and should be behind little Pomelo by quite a bit. 2 months ago, she was still in primary school, but now she was wearing this middle school uniform and carrying a bag. Jumping down from the wall, Jingtan sat beside little Jiu and listened to the girl speak. The current little Nine looked much more cheerful. She had a short haircut that reached her shoulders and wore a pink butterfly hairpin on her head. She usually looked very obedient, but those who had seen her fight would know that this girl was very fierce. Jingtan had once met little Nine at the bridge. They had been walking for a while. Along the way, they had met a peddler with an evil voice. He didn't sell real things and wanted to cheat the children of their money. However, when little Nine pulled a long face, the peddler didn't even dare to look into little Nine's eyes. Perhaps because of her past experience, little Jiu's attitude towards things was different from her peers. She had always been very satisfied with Master Kuan's arrangements. Back then, the blind old man, Master Kuan, might have taken a fancy to little Jiu's fierceness, which was why he agreed to let little Jiu go. As expected, many blind people were blind in the eyes but not in the heart. After little Jiu saw Jingtan, she became very talkative. She was often the one who kept talking while Jingtan listened by the side. From little Jiu's words, Jingtan knew that little Jiu was indeed reading primary school books last month. However, now that she had passed the primary school advancement test, there was no need to wait for another half a year. Thus, the other side arranged for her to go to a middle school here. Other than little Jiu, there were 2 other people who were tutored together in this school. They were in the 2nd and 3rd grades respectively. However, they did not usually go to school together, so no one knew that they knew each other. With Master Kuan's ability, it was not difficult for him to send little Jiu in at this time. As for little Jiu, as a transfer student, she entered this school not long after Jingtan left Chuhua City. It was no wonder that he did not know. Little Jiu also talked about little Pomelo. Because they were in different classes, one on the 1st floor and the other on the 2nd floor, little Jiu did not take the initiative to look for little Pomelo. This was because she did not know which class little Pomelo was in at the beginning. After finding out, she beat up a few girls who spread the rumors the next day. It was not good for her to immediately look for little Pomelo. She had to observe those people for a period of time. Otherwise, she was afraid that it would bring trouble to little Pomelo. Little Gio was very fierce when she fought. Jingtan could imagine how little Gio looked when she beat up those girls. When little Gio beat them up, she did not say that it was because of little Pomelo. Those people probably did not think that little Gio and little Pomelo knew each other. The rumors they spread were just made up. However, in reality, they were half right. She did not have a boyfriend, but she did have a problem girl. Little Gio decided to wait until the final exam was over before looking for little Pomelo and telling her about it. Now, she would not let little Pomelo worry. Tomorrow, I'll talk to the other guys who spread the rumors. Little Gio rubbed her fists and said. During middle school, there were many people who fought behind their backs, regardless of whether they were boys or girls. Boys fighting would be a little bloody, but girls fighting would mostly be slaps and hair pulling, Jingtan thought. However, if little Gio made a move, it would be hard to say. Little Gio was not the kind of person who liked to bully others. If she really made a move, those people would definitely be very hateful. Moreover, Jingtan believed that little Gio knew her limits. This girl followed Elder Kuan and would not act rashly like those hooligans. On the contrary, most of the time, they were more low-key. Otherwise, little Pomelo would not have not known that little Gio was in the same school. During the period of young and dangerous, for middle school students, the gangsters of the underworld were much more influential than Mr. Perfect. This was especially true for middle school students. When a gangster was mentioned, they would directly imagine him as a powerful figure in the underworld. It was all kinds of awesome. Although it had already faded, and it had been a few years since that era, the potential influence was still there. When it was mentioned, people would have a feeling of disdain and reverence. If it was related to the top students, there would be more gossip. It was no wonder that those students would choose to spread the rumors about the underworld. Jingtan originally wanted to personally teach those who spread the rumors a lesson, regardless of whether they were male or female. However, now that little Gio was there, Jingtan did not have to waste time looking for them. Aya, it's almost time. Class will end in 5 minutes. I have to go to the classroom during the break. Little Gio carried her bag and threw it towards the wall. Then, she took a few steps back and increased her speed. Using a tree that was closer to the wall, she jumped over. Zheng Tan's eyes twitched. One look and he knew that she was a repeat offender. When Zheng Tan jumped over the wall, he found that on the other side of the school wall, there was a person standing not far from where little Gio landed. He had a cold face and an armband. It was obvious that he was the teacher on duty. He was there to prevent those disobedient students from jumping over the wall or doing bad things in the school. Cough, good morning, Teacher Wang. Little Gio lifted her bag and patted the dust off it. She obediently bowed to Teacher Wang, who was standing not far away. Teacher Wang's face twitched. There were 5 days of school every week. On 4 days, this girl would enter the school on time. On the remaining day, she might be late or early. Why did he say, might? Because there were a few times when the teacher was late. The person on duty at the school gate did not record it. If it was a boy, then it would be easy to handle. There were many problematic boys in high school and there would be ways to deal with them. However, this was a girl. During class, other than being late, she was still well behaved. She was a transfer student. He heard that her grades were not good, but she was not at the bottom of the class either. She was just below average. She was not the main target of the teachers. However, it was this girl that made the people on duty feel helpless. Teacher Wang considered his words and thought about how to teach her. This morning, he was on duty. He did not expect to see a bag being thrown in from the other side of the wall. The next moment, a small figure nimbly jumped over the wall and steadily landed on the ground. After seeing who it was, Teacher Wang's eyelids twitched. Before Teacher Wang could speak, little Gio lowered her head and said, I was wrong. She admitted her mistake so straightforwardly that Teacher Wang had to swallow back his words. What was wrong? Teacher Wang asked seriously. I shouldn't have jumped over the wall. Little Jiao said. And? Teacher Wang stared at Little Jiao. Why are you late again? The word again made Jingtan's beard tremble. Little Jiao tilted her head as if she was thinking. Then she said, Oh, I saw an old granny get hit by a car this morning. I sent her to the hospital. That's why I was late. Teacher Wang and Jingtan. Could she be any more fake? But in the next moment, Little Jiao took out several certificates from her bag. There were certificates from the hospital, the police, and the patient's family. The stamps and hospital certificates proved that Little Jiao was telling the truth. Jingtan thought about it carefully. Little Jiao did have the smell of the hospital. Chapter 322. With little Pomelo around, Jingtan wasn't afraid of those ignorant people bothering little Pomelo. He also felt more assured about the school. As for little Pomelo, although she didn't plan to immediately fight back against those rumors and taunts, she was holding back her energy and waiting for the final exam to get a good result to slap those people in the face. This was the best way to fight back. After New Year's Day, the atmosphere in primary and secondary schools was more tense. They were preparing for this semester's final exam. If they didn't do well, they might not be able to have a happy new year. Jingtan looked at the calendar in the living room. The old one had been replaced by the new one. This was the 5th year since Jingtan came here. According to the conversion of the age of a cat and a human, Jingtan was a middle-aged uncle. The good thing was that Jingtan felt that his body parts were quite resilient. There wasn't much difference from the past few years. In Jingtan's heart, he always felt that he was a handsome young man in his 20s. At noon, they ate at Jiao Wei's small restaurant. Jiao Wei's parents had already discussed when to buy a ticket back to their hometown. Of course, Jiao Wei's time was the norm. They had to let Jiao Wei finish the exam before buying a ticket. They were all in the province and there weren't many trains there. If they went to the bus station to buy a ticket, they could go there with their luggage whenever they wanted to go back. They didn't need to book a ticket in advance like other people. Walking on the street in front of the school gate, Jingtan found that a new store had opened. The previous store that sold clothes was gone and replaced by a big, Wutaro sesame cake sign. The store wasn't big, but there were many people buying the cake. The line of people formed a Z shape. The smell of the sesame cake made passers-by look over. Those who were impatient waiting in line wanted to come back when there were fewer people, but foodies were always very patient in this regard. Jingtan went closer to take a look. The busy boss was the one who had pushed the stall earlier. He was the one who had trouble walking. No wonder this person was so happy when he reappeared a few days ago. It seemed that he had rented a shop. The place where the sesame seed cakes were made took up half of the entire shop. The other half should be a rest area. Jingtan saw 2 small children walking to the front of the shop from a small door inside. They hugged the boss's leg and said something with a coquettish smile. After that, they went back inside. They should be the 2 children of the sesame seed cake shop owner. After looking around, Jingtan walked towards the school gate, intending to go home. It was a little cold outside, and Jingtan was not in the mood to stroll around. After a few steps, Jingtan spotted a man. He had seen him before when Jingtan was still a diamond. He was one of Tom Mo's bodyguards. Now, he was standing beside a delicatessen not far from the bakery, watching the crowd. What was this person doing here? When Jingtan looked at the bakery, another person walked into the shop. After a short while, he came out with 3 sets of sesame seed cakes. There was no queue, and the bakery owner was very polite to him. Jingtan followed that person and walked a little further. There was a black car parked near the road. It was Tom Mo's car. After that person got into the car drove away. Jingtan looked at the car driving away, shook his head, and jogged back home. On the other side of the car, Tom Mo took the sesame seed cake from his subordinate and sniffed it. It was quite fragrant. He took a bite. It tasted not bad. There is still nothing unusual over there. The people who went to buy the sesame seed cakes are the nearby vendors and some teachers. Most of them are still students, that person reported to Tom Mo. Tom Mo grunted and did not say anything else. After the diamond was returned by the unknown person, he sent someone to investigate the sesame seed cake seller. After all, there were many people selling Wuturong sesame seed cakes, but there was only one Wuturong sesame seed cake shop. The investigation did not find anything useful. Thinking of the pencil words on the paper bag, Tom Mo. was more inclined to believe that the person who returned the diamond was a young student. Tom Mo. even asked Xiao Gua if anyone else had heard him on the phone. The answer he got was no. When Xiao Gua made the call, he was alone in his room. Of course, there were two cats, Li Yuanba and Jing Tan. Normal people would not think too much about the cats. Tom Mo. and the others promised a sum of money when they asked the bakery owner and got enough information. Most of the information was about the person who went to buy the sesame seed cakes, but until now, they had not found the person they were looking for. The person who sold the sesame seed cakes used his savings and the money Tom Mo. gave him to rent a shop. He had made quite a lot of money in the past few days. Don't underestimate this kind of small snack. Judging by the way the bakery owner could not stop laughing, it was obvious that he had made a lot of money. Jing Tan would never have thought that a paper bag he picked up would lead to such a result. The person we are looking for is not him, the woman beside Tom Mo. said. Tom Mo. nodded. I know, but let them continue to observe. Ask Wuturong to cooperate. He will not be short of money. Yes, boss. After Jing Tan returned home, he had nothing to do in the afternoon, so he turned on his computer and browsed some forums. There were many people talking about Gong Zongxiao in the entertainment section. It started when an official channel reported that a famous movie star Gong Zongxiao had been detained. When the official channel officially announced that he was detained and under investigation, it meant that he had been convicted. Just like Fang Xiaokang said, there was no way he could get away with it. Gong Zongxiao's original surname was Zhao. After the news was broadcasted, it caused a lot of discussion. All kinds of conspiracy theories were flying around, and the fans were spitting on each other. The topic of Gong Zongxiao only stopped when the weather was getting worse. In the middle of January, it snowed heavily in Chuhua City. In the beginning, there were people who said that a good snowfall meant a good harvest. Many people played in the snow outside to relax from the tension and fatigue brought about by the final exams. It was not until the exams were over and everyone was about to go home that they started to worry, especially those who lived far away from home in the south. Some people were lucky and bought tickets on the 2 days when the weather was better, so the journey home was relatively smooth. However, some people bought tickets on the day when the weather was bad. It was windy and snowy, and many places were frozen. The highways were closed, trains were delayed, and flights were delayed. Many people who bought tickets on the day before could only get on the train the next day. Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo stayed at home. They were not in the mood to play in the snow. They were obediently doing the homework assigned by their teachers during the winter break. Grandpa Jiao had also called a few times to ask about the time they were going to go back to their hometown. He repeatedly reminded them to be careful when they were driving. He would rather drive slowly than to play in the snow. The television said that this was a once-in-50-years snowstorm. Many drivers in the south were not used to driving in the snow and ice. They did not take proper precautions, and many accidents happened. It was said that some drivers from the north were transferred over. Jiao Pa had to stay at the university for a while. This morning, he heard that a student who was on his way home had an accident before he could leave the city. He was now in the hospital. The Faculty of Genomics called for an emergency meeting. All the head teachers, graduate students, and doctoral supervisors were in charge. Jiao Pa had a lot of graduate students under him. He had to wait for all his students to leave the university before he could go back to his hometown. According to the meteorologists, this snowstorm would not end for the time being. At the end of January, the students left the university one by one. It did not matter if the process was difficult or not. That night, Jiao Wei's father came to visit and told him about their plans. Jiao Wei's father knew someone who was now a driver at a bus station. He used to do business in the north and drove in the north. He could handle this kind of snow and ice. Many drivers in the north would not be able to handle the icy roads even if it was sunny and not snowing. But that person was able to handle it. He had chatted with Jiao Wei's father yesterday. It was rare that the weather would calm down in the next 2 days. A few highways would be temporarily unblocked. So, he called Jiao Wei's father and asked him to get a few tickets for them. The tickets could not be direct. They could only go to the county. As for the journey from the county to their hometown, they would have to transfer buses. Jiao Pa decided to let Jiao Ma bring Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo back with Jiao Wei and the rest. He had to stay at the university for a few more days. When the time came, he would drive back with Zheng Tan. After all, it was not convenient for Zheng Tan to follow them in the bus. In the past, Zheng Tan did not pay much attention to this disaster. At that time, he was probably busy looking for fun. News? What was that? He never had the patience to read it. But now that he was in the middle of it, Zheng Tan had a different feeling. Especially on the day when Jiao Ma and the rest took the bus back to their hometown, Zheng Tan watched some of the current affairs news on the provincial TV station. He also watched the rolling real-time news below the TV. He also turned on the computer to look at the news on the internet. For example, a highway was temporarily closed, an accident happened on a road, a riot happened somewhere, etc. When he received news that Jiao Ma and the rest had arrived safely, Zheng Tan finally felt relieved. Black charcoal, it's just the two of us left. Jiao Pa looked out the window and said. Now, only the Jiao Pa and Zheng Tan were left at home. It was cold and quiet. Jiao Pa was basically not at home during the day. Zheng Tan followed the Jiao Pa to the staff canteen for 3 meals. At other times, Zheng Tan stayed at home alone and watched the news on the TV. On the TV, the experts used their profound academic language to analyze the cause of the snow disaster. They also used some meteorological terms that Zheng Tan did not understand at all. Many people were going crazy. This was not what they wanted to hear. They wanted to know how long the weather would last, when the traffic would be restored, and when they could get on the bus after buying a ticket. Every day, when Zheng Tan turned on the TV, regardless of whether it was the city's TV station, provincial TV station, or CCTV station, most of them were talking about the snow disaster in the south. There were many migrant workers and students stranded in other places during the spring festival. From the images on the TV, the bus stations of some provinces and cities were densely packed with stranded people. Counting the days, many people became more and more irritable. The price of some unlicensed buses doubled again and again. The price of food also skyrocketed. As for the superstar child Xiao, other than a few people, no one paid any attention to him. In this area, the traditional Lunar New Year was on the 24th of December. Although the Lunar New Year had passed, the bus stations of some provinces and cities were still the same. Every day, they would hear about the places that were seriously affected by the disaster, the economic losses, and the number of casualties. At night, some people who were stranded in other places would go online and complain about not going home for the Lunar New Year. But some people did not. I worked so hard outside to save so much money to go home for the Lunar New Year to reunite with my family and improve the lives of my wife and children. How can a mere snow stop me? Dream on. Even if they could not get a ticket or a bus, they could think of other ways. Therefore, Zheng Tan could always see all kinds of opinions and suggestions on the internet. There were also people who walked across provinces to go home. 2 days before the Lunar New Year's Eve, the Jiao Pa had finished his work. The weather had also temporarily eased. Looking at the scenery of the campus from the top, there were still many places that were white. The temperature was not high, and driving was still not easy. Chapter 323. Zheng Tan sat in the back seat and looked at the scenery outside the window. Unlike the usual bustle before the new year, this year seemed to be quieter. Perhaps it was because the temperature was lower than usual, coupled with the impact of the snow disaster, such a change occurred. However, compared to many places and some villages and mountain areas that were more seriously affected by the disaster, the situation in the city was much better. The most common complaint of the citizens was probably the water pipes that froze and cracked a few days ago. As for the rest of the people who did not have to worry about traveling and did not have any direct financial conflicts, they were just spectators. It did not affect their normal lives. They only discussed it with others when they watched the news every day. The Jiaopa kept the traffic radio on. The weather had eased a lot in the past 2 days, and many people who stayed in the city were rushing to leave. There were quite a lot of illegal cars and so on. They probably wanted to take advantage of this period to make more money. In order to avoid a traffic jam, the Jiaopa deliberately got up early and set off. Unexpectedly, there were many people who had the same idea as the Jiaopa. There were many cars on the road early in the morning, and there were several small-scale traffic jams on the road, especially at the crossroads. Looking at the long line of cars in front of them, they felt particularly annoyed. When they finally got out of the city, it had been an hour and a half. This was the first time Zheng Tan had encountered such a situation. He was dizzy from the constant stopping. According to the usual driving route, after leaving the city, they would go directly to the highway. The highway was closed a few days ago, but it was lifted in the past 2 days. However, when they were about to reach the highway, the traffic radio reported that there was an accident on the highway. They hoped that the cars driving there would change their route. No one knew how long the traffic jam would last because of the accident. The Jiaopa had no choice but to change their route. They did not take the highway and change to another route. When they passed by a few bus stations, Zheng Tan glanced over there. There were still a lot of people around. The waiting hall was full, and there were also some people waiting outside the door. There were also armed police there to maintain order. Zheng Tan also saw taxis, buses, and private buses outside the bus station. Some people were holding signs with the names of various counties and cities, shouting as they walked, pulling passengers. This was probably what some people called a black car, but at this time, people no longer cared about whether it was a black car or not. It was fine as long as they could sit in the car. When it came to crowded cars, there weren't many people who would give way to vulnerable people such as the old, the weak, the sick, the disabled, and the pregnant. When it was time to squeeze, they still squeezed. After leaving the city, Zheng Tan was unfamiliar with the route. He looked at the buildings on both sides and recorded the new route information. The road was still a little frozen, but it was much better than before. The Jiaopa could still control it if he drove slowly. However, some cars were speeding as if they were in a hurry. They kept squeezing forward as if they were afraid of falling behind. Twice, they almost collided with Jiaopa's car. Just as Zheng Tan was cursing the 2 guys who overtook him, a motorcyclist suddenly cut in between Zheng Tan's car and the one in front. Then, he quickly passed through the gap between the car in front and the other car. Zheng Tan was shocked. Was this person too confident in his driving skills, or was he in an emergency? About 10 minutes later, the car stopped again. Zheng Tan stood up and looked forward. The line of cars had formed again. There was a traffic jam again. After waiting for a while, there was still no movement. The Jiaopa opened the window for some air. It was very warm in the car. His nerves were tense when he was driving, and now, the cold wind cleared his mind. Black charcoal, are you cold? The Jiaopa looked at Zheng Tan in the back seat. After the window was opened, the cold wind poured in, dispersing the warmth in the car. Many northerners were not used to the humid and cold weather in the south. Zheng Tan, who used to live in the south, had gotten used to it after a few years. Even if it was exceptionally cold this year, Zheng Tan felt fine. The vest he was wearing today was a winter model given by Xiaogua. Xiaogua gave him 2, one black and one army green. Not only could the vest be used to store things, but it also had to be thicker to keep him warm. It was also said that it was waterproof. Seeing that Zheng Tan did not seem to feel cold, the Jiaopa did not ask any more questions. The driver of the car on the left was smoking outside the car. There were children in the car, and it was not good to smoke in the car, so he came out. When he saw the Jiaopa open the window, he started chatting. He had been driving for nearly 20 hours. Although there was a 5-hour break in the middle, the driver's driving skills were not good. He almost had an accident, so he was driving most of the time. Now that there was a traffic jam, he came out to smoke to refresh himself. The driver of the car in front also joined the conversation. He was privately soliciting customers. Yesterday was quite smooth. The traffic jam didn't last long. Today's bad luck. We were stuck for half an hour in the morning, and now it's starting again. Can we leave in 10 minutes? The driver of the car on the left asked. It's difficult. There was a car accident in front. A motorcycle, 2 private cars, and a truck all crashed into each other. Fortunately, no one died. 3 people were seriously injured and have just been sent to the hospital. The remaining people in the 2 private cars are quarreling. No one moved. I heard that the car was quite expensive. It also broke a telephone pole. In addition to the overturned cars and the truck's belongings on the ground. I think it will take at least 20 minutes for the traffic to open. According to the privately soliciting driver, it was even more difficult to drive a few days ago. Usually, it would only take a little more than 2 hours. Previously, it took more than 10 hours to drive through the snow. Moreover, the car could break down at any time. Only those who had driven it would know how difficult it was to drive. It was no wonder that the fare had doubled. Usually, the fare was 50 renminbi. Now, it was 100 to 150 renminbi per person. A few days ago, the fare had skyrocketed to 200 renminbi. As they were chatting, another person came to the front of the convoy. He asked the 2 drivers and the Jiaopa to go to the front to help. There were not enough people, and there were many obstacles. If they wanted the traffic to open quickly, it would be faster if there were more people. Otherwise, they would have to wait for a while. The driver of the car in front shook his head. He was not going. He had to look after the car. He did not know the passengers in his car. What if someone took the chance to drive away when he went to help? What if they took something valuable? What if the people in the car made a scene? The driver of the car next to him did not think much of it. He smoked and walked to the front with the Jiaopa. The car door was not locked, and the windows were closed. Soon, the temperature in the car rose. Before the Jiaopa left, he asked Jing Tan to look after the car. Therefore, Jing Tan was not napping. He was paying attention to the people around the car. Soon, Jing Tan noticed that someone was walking over from the front and looking into the car. With one glance, Jing Tan could tell that it was one of the guys who had evil intentions. When the guy saw the laptop bag on the passenger seat, his gaze paused for a little longer. There was a flash of joy in the man's eyes. Then, he walked to the car door and opened the door of the passenger seat. Then, just as he was about to reach for the computer bag on the seat, a black shadow flashed by. He felt a sudden pain on his face and was kicked out. He lost his balance and sat on the ground. That person's eyes were filled with disbelief. He saw that there was no one in the car and the door was not locked. He ignored the cat in the vest. He had done this many times and the whole operation did not take long. He just needed to open the car door and open the laptop. Even if the car door was locked, he could do it. However, he did not expect that what he thought was a simple task would be so different from what he expected. The person touched his nose and looked at the blood on his hand. Then, he looked at Jing Tan. Jing Tan narrowed his eyes. This person was still not giving up. Was he looking for a kick? He jumped up and kicked him again. That person raised his hand to block, but he underestimated Jing Tan's strength. Although he reacted quickly and raised his forearm to block Jing Tan's kick, the force of the kick made him fall back. His head hit a private car next to him and made a thud. At the same time, Jing Tan also grabbed the person's down jacket. The wind blew, and the duck feathers flew everywhere. Jing Tan found it hard to understand why that person was stealing when he was wearing a branded down jacket. However, there were many people like that. A few days ago, he saw someone complaining on the internet. He did not expect to meet someone like that today. The driver of the private car on the right heard the noise and rolled down the window. He looked at the person on the ground and then looked at Jingtan. "Hey, what are you doing?" Before he could finish, the rear window was rolled down. Two children in their teens looked out the window. The little girl said, "Uncle, this person must be a thief. He must be a thief." The little boy added, "The cat in the vest is teaching the thief a lesson." The person on the ground looked a little embarrassed. There was blood on his face, from his nose to his mouth. Because he touched his face with his hand, there was some blood on his face. There was a long tear in his jacket, and some of the duck feathers inside was blown out by the wind. Seeing that the situation was not good, the person did not care about the nosebleed and the torn-down jacket. He immediately got up and ran away before the people around him looked over. He ran too fast and stepped on something. He slipped and fell, but he did not care about the pain. He got up and continued running. When the Jiaopa came back, the person had already run away. The driver of the car on the right told him what had happened. The Jiaopa smiled at the driver's questions and did not say much. "I think your cat is not bad. Is it a male or female?" the driver asked. "Male." "Oh, that's good. I also have a female cat with folded ears. Do you want to skewer her?" Zheng Tan's face twitched. "Screw you." Seeing Zheng Tan turn around and get into the car, the Jiaopa smiled at the driver. "My cat is just a stray cat. It's okay. I don't mind." The man waved his hand and said casually. The Jiaopa was speechless. Fortunately, the traffic was cleared up quickly, and the cars began to move slowly. The Jiaopa said a few perfunctory words and got into the car. The Jiaopa did not say much about what had happened to Jingtan. He just smiled at Jingtan and gave him a thumbs up. Although the first half of the journey was bumpy, and there were several traffic jams, it was much smoother after that. Because there were many cars coming and going, there was no snow. The temperature was slightly higher during the day, and there was no ice on the ground. Therefore, the second half of the journey was quite smooth. As usual, the Jiaopa arrived at the county first. He had a meal, rested for a while, and then made a phone call to let his family know that he was safe. Then, he continued to drive to his hometown. There were a few sections of road in the Jiaopa's hometown that were not easy to walk on, but after a slow drive, it was much better. Grandpa Jiao was already waiting at the entrance of the village. He knew that the Jiaopa was driving alone, so he did not dare to call to ask about it. He was afraid that the Jiaopa would be distracted. When he saw the Jiaopa's car, he immediately smiled. Chapter 324. The next day, Jiaopa was still resting in the morning. He didn't have much time to rest these days. He had to pay attention to his students at school and work on projects. He was also tired from driving back to his hometown. After he arrived, he relaxed and had a good night's sleep. Many people in the village had already woken up early in the morning. Only some children and some people who had gone out to work were still resting in their houses. Although Zheng Tan was still a little sleepy, little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan were already awake. When they heard that they were going to help Grandpa Jiao at the orchard, Zheng Tan thought that since he had nothing to do, he might as well go and take a look. Jiao Ma and the old lady were busy preparing for the new year. Zheng Tan couldn't help much even if he stayed. The orchard didn't belong to Grandpa Jiao, but Grandpa Jiao was familiar with the people there and had helped a lot. This was one of the reasons why the Jiao family never lacked fruit. Because of the snow disaster, Grandpa Jiao went there every day to help. Even Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo, who had nothing to do at home, went to the orchard for a few days. Even if they couldn't help much, they could at least take a look. The orchard wasn't too far from the old house, but because of the weather, the road wasn't easy to walk on, and it was cold in the morning, so they took the donkey cart these days. Another reason why Zheng Tan followed them was because of the donkey cart. Whether it was when he was a human or when he was a cat, he had never taken a donkey cart before. At first glance, it was quite refreshing and full of rustic vibes. The donkey's family was not far from the old house. After walking for about 5 minutes, they saw a tile-roofed house. Behind the tile-roofed house was a newly built bungalow. However, the tile-roofed house was not completely demolished during the construction, so a part of it remained. This family's surname was also Jiao. Jiao Pa called the old man fifth uncle. Logically speaking, Jiao Yuan should have called him fifth granduncle, but he wasn't used to it. Instead, Jiao Pa asked the two children to call him Grandpa Jiao. It was more intimate that way. Grandpa Jiao heard that on the day the Jiao Yuan and the others came back, he planned to ask the donkey cart to help them if they couldn't get a ride from the county to here. Fifth Grandpa was old and couldn't drive the family's farm cart, but he was good at driving donkey carts. Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo were led into the house by Grandpa Jiao, but Jing Tan did not follow them directly. His attention was on the donkey's shed next to them. Yesterday, he heard from little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan that the donkey was only a little over a year old. He heard that fifth grandpa met the donkey when he went to the mountains. At that time, it was still a small donkey. No one knew where it came from, but after seeing fifth grandpa, it followed him back. At first, fifth grandpa's family wanted to raise the donkey and sell it. There were many people who ate donkey meat in the county, and the price of donkey meat in restaurants was not bad. But one day, when the old man saw the donkey running with his son, who was riding a motorbike, he had an idea. Later on, he got a donkey cart. At that moment, the donkey tied to the cart was looking at Jing Tan with its two long ears protruding. Its eyes were wide open, and there was a circle of white around its eyes. Jing Tan was wary of donkeys with a circle of white around their eyes. Although he knew that many donkeys looked like that, when he looked at the donkey in front of him, Jing Tan couldn't help but think of the stupid bird in the courtyard. Shaking his head, Jing Tan felt that he was thinking too much. As he was thinking, Jing Tan saw the donkey walk to the low wall next to the donkey shed. There was a cotton mat on top of the low wall that was exposed outside the donkey shed. It was probably for the driver. Not far from the low wall was a two-wheeled wooden cart with a similar mat on it. However, at that moment, there was a yellow and white cat lying on top of the low wall. People in the village raised cats to protect them from mice. They were not as particular as raising cats in the city, and they rarely bathed them. The cat had rolled around somewhere, and there were some dust and grass stains on its white fur. The cat didn't seem to care about its surroundings. It was kicking its paws, lying on the cotton mat with its head tucked in, and its eyes closed. The donkey wasn't very tall. It was obviously smaller than a normal horse, but when it raised its head, half of its head could be seen above the low wall. Jing Tan watched as the donkey slowly walked over to the low wall. It used its nose to blow air at the cat. The cat didn't even bother to open its eyes. Other than the twitching of its ears, it remained the same. Just when Jing Tan thought that the donkey would give up, the donkey went up again. This time, it didn't blow air. Instead, it opened its mouth and bit on a corner of the cotton mat. It pulled lightly, but it didn't move. The cat on the mat didn't move either. The donkey pulled hard again. Because the cat wasn't prepared, it rolled from the mat to the other side of the low wall. Jing Tan heard a soft thud from the other side. There was a haystack over there, and the cat happened to land on it. That was why it made such a sound. The donkey let go of the cotton mat and wagged its tail. It opened its mouth and cried out, "Aang, aang, 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 aang." Jing Tan didn't know what to say. His first instinct was right. Just when the donkey was feeling smug, a shadow jumped up from the other side of the low wall. The tabby cat jumped onto the low wall and supported itself with its two hind legs. It stood up, opened its two front paws, and slapped the donkey's face twice. While the donkey and the cat were fighting, Grandpa Jiao came out with his men. An old man came out with him. He was probably the fifth grandpa that the Jiao Yuan and the others called. The old man's back was a little stooped, but he was in good spirits and walked steadily. He had been helping out in the orchard recently. Seeing the situation on the other side of the low wall, the old man walked over and patted the donkey's head. Then, he started to organize the things on the wooden cart. As for the conflict between the donkey and the cat, he was already used to it. After tying the reins and checking the donkey's head, he put the bags on the wooden cart and called for the others to get ready to leave. On the rugged mountain road, the donkey cart bumped and squeaked. The donkey didn't look like much, but it was surprisingly good at pulling the cart. It didn't look like it had a hard time carrying 4 people, a cat, and a few bags. The 2 old men chatted along the way, talking about the recent news from various TV stations and radio stations. The total losses from this disaster were huge, especially for the forestry industry. The forestry industry in the affected areas accounted for more than 50% of the industry's total income. The snowstorm not only greatly reduced the income of the forestry industry in the affected areas this year, but it would also affect their income for the next 3 to 5 years. According to some official TV stations, the losses from the forestry industry in several southern provinces accounted for 40% to 60% of the total losses from the disaster. Seedlings, bamboo forests, and new plantations were seriously affected. Just like Grandpa Jiao had been lamenting, it was common for seedlings to freeze to death. The area of bamboo forests in the province accounted for 80% of the total area of bamboo forests in the province, and 75% of the fruit trees in some areas that had been converted to forests were damaged. According to the results of the investigation, most of the affected areas were the areas with the fastest and most vigorous forestry development. They were also the areas with the best forest resources. This would have a serious impact on the country's ecology. There were many things that couldn't be salvaged even with money. Every time they talked about it, Grandpa Jiao's face would be full of worry. After about 20 minutes of driving, they arrived at the orchard that Grandpa Jiao had mentioned. This orchard didn't only plant a single type of fruit. Citrus was just one of them. There were also many new varieties that had been promoted. However, Zheng Tan looked at the people working in the orchard and saw that they all looked worried. Some varieties of autumn leaves had turned brown from frostbite on the edges and back, then curled up. The tender tips had turned brown from frostbite and dried up, while some other varieties had fallen off after being frozen and curled up. There were also some fruits that had been left on the tree for the winter. Some of them had frozen a while ago. After the snow melted, the fruits would quickly lose water and dry up. The juice cells would shrink, and there would be less juice and no taste. All kinds of situations would be recorded one by one. They would clear the ice in time, tie up and cut off the broken branches in time. Some pruning couldn't be done yet to prevent further frost damage. Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo followed Grandpa Jiao and the others. Although they didn't have many opportunities to help personally, they didn't slack off. Sometimes, they would take the initiative to pass the tools and do some cleaning and other small chores. Moving around would make them feel warmer, and they had also learned a lot. After the frost passed, they would be even busier. After the frost, there would be pruning and fertilizing. During the year of the frost, the autumn leaves of the citrus plants would be frostbitten. One of the effective measures to ensure that the citrus plants would bear fruit was to replace the autumn leaves with spring shoots. The so-called spring shoots were the new shoots that sprouted in the spring. The new shoots that sprouted from August to October were known as autumn shoots. Different varieties would be treated differently. Different methods would be used for those that could withstand the frost and those that couldn't. Zheng Tan originally thought that pruning would be a very simple task in the future, but after listening to those people, he realized that there were a lot of things to be done. Some pruning would be done below the branch joint, and some tree bark would be cut several centimeters below the crack when it froze. The cutting also needed to be done. Some would be wrapped and sealed with nylon or smeared with lime paste on the wound. When the young trees were severely frostbitten, they would split above the grafting area, leaving 1 or 2 buds to be cut. At the same time, they would pay attention to keeping the spring shoots and recultivating the canopy, etc. Zheng Tan felt dizzy just listening to all this. He realized that he wasn't cut out for this at all. Thus, Zheng Tan decided to walk around by himself. After all, little Pomelo and the others would be staying here for a long time. It could be half a day, or it could be dinner time. No matter what, Zheng Tan just had to be back before lunch. There were more people in the orchard, so Zheng Tan decided to walk a little further away. The people who were busy in the orchard looked at Jingtan curiously because Jingtan was wearing a vest. After arriving at the old mansion yesterday, Jingtan moved some of the things in the vest. Now, there was nothing else in the vest except for a bag of pork jerky stuffed in by Jiao Ma. It was more relaxed this way, and he wasn't afraid of being checked. In the past, Jingtan wasn't willing to wear a vest often, but yesterday afternoon, when Jingtan was walking outside, an icicle fell vertically on his back. Fortunately, the icicle wasn't thick, and Jingtan was wearing a vest, so he only felt a little pain and didn't get hurt. Therefore, Jingtan decided that if he went out for a walk, he would wear a vest. It was safer this way. After jogging for a while, Jingtan didn't see anyone around, so he strolled slowly until he reached the edge of the orchard. It was surrounded by barbed wire. There was a door, but it was locked. Jingtan looked at the tall barbed wire and turned to walk in another direction. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks and moved his ears. He heard a sound. Because he wasn't sure, he tried to distinguish it himself. It sounded like a person, but it wasn't clear. Should he go over and take a look? After hesitating for a moment, Jingtan climbed over the barbed wire and went in the direction of the sound. There was an open space outside the barbed wire, and then there was a forest belt. The sound came from there. As no one had cleaned the snow here, the snow on the ground hadn't completely melted. Listening to the sound, the person who made the sound wasn't in a good situation. Jingtan quietly jogged over. Chapter 325. The surroundings were very quiet. The two men were tied to two trees in a standing position. Their mouths were taped shut, and they could only make noises through their noses. The sound Jingtan heard came from one of them. As for the other man, he didn't make a sound. His head was moving slightly, and he seemed to be in a worse condition. Fortunately, the two men were wearing down jackets. Otherwise, they would probably freeze to death if they were left here alone. Jingtan approached the two men from behind and looked at the rope tied to them. The ropes were too tight, too secure, and there were dead knots. Jingtan didn't bring his card knife today, so it was difficult for him to untie the ropes. Good people? Bad people? They must have been tied up here for a long time. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so cold. The marks around them didn't look like they had just been done. Jingtan slowly walked out from the side and looked at the man who made the sound. He was about the same age as the Jiao Pa. When he saw Jingtan, he was filled with sadness, anger, and anxiety. Suddenly, he was filled with hope. He didn't look like a bad person. Moreover, when the man looked anxious, he looked at the other man who was tied up a few steps away. Obviously, he was worried about the health of the man next to him. As for the second man, he was younger and was also a man. Jingtan felt that this man was quite pitiful. He had obviously been beaten up. The first man had at most a bruise at the corner of his eye, but this man was beaten up like a pig's head. There was blood on his forehead, and he wasn't very conscious. There was a dirt road about 50 meters away from here. There were no cars passing by, and even if there were, the doors would be closed. It was hard to hear the noise outside. If it weren't for Jingtan, who knew when the two of them would be discovered? Perhaps, they would already be dead by the time they were discovered. After Jingtan looked at the two men, he ran towards the orchard. He quickly climbed over the barbed wire fence to find the Jiao Yuan. The Jiao Yuan was helping someone take out a toolbox. He moved his wrists and was about to move on to the next one when he felt someone tugging at his trouser leg. Jingtan tugged at Jiao Yuan's trousers and looked in the direction of the two men. He looked at Jiao Yuan and tugged again. Jiao Yuan frowned and said to Grandpa Jiao, who was chatting with someone not far away, "Grandpa, I'm just taking a walk." "All right, be careful." Grandpa Jiao didn't mind too much. There wasn't much danger in the orchard. The children couldn't stay idle and wanted to look around, so he let them be. Jingtan didn't intend to let little Pomelo follow him. She was still young. What if she met someone with bad intentions outside? He did not expect little Pomelo to follow him after noticing him. After bringing the two men to the barbed wire fence, Jingtan directly climbed over it. Zhao Yuan asked little Pomelo to stay here while he went over to take a look. This was also what Jingtan wanted. Zhao Yuan had always been obedient in front of outsiders. He was a good student in the eyes of the teachers. However, in reality, this guy in Xiong had done a lot of bad things. Even though he was in high school now, he was still doing the same, or even more. Climbing over the fence and climbing over the fence, Jingtan knew that Zhao Yuan was familiar with it. After bringing the Zhao Yuan to the forest, the man who was about the same age as the Zhao Pa saw Jingtan and the Zhao Yuan. His eyes were filled with joy and tears. Zhao Yuan tore off the tape on the man's mouth and asked, "Who are you?" The man's voice was trembling, but his voice was very clear. "My name is Song Ting, from the Academy of Agricultural Sciences. When I came here yesterday, it was already night time. My phone was out of battery, so I didn't call my friends here. I wanted to take a taxi to the experimental base, but I didn't expect to be robbed. When we arrived here, the other two men and the driver tied us up here. They had knives and sticks in their hands, and they took our phones and wallets. Our IDs were in our bags, and they took everything away. The young man next to us should be from around here. He came back from work. He resisted and even took a few hits for me. He's not in good condition right now, and he needs a doctor." Zhao Yuan did not immediately believe the other party's words. Although he felt that the person in front of him was a good person, he had seen many situations where people were bitten after saving people. Now, he was only a high school student, and no one else could help him. 2 days ago, the news reported that after saving people, he was hit into the snow by the other party with a stick. He had to be vigilant, so he needed to prove this person's identity again. Therefore, Zhao Yuan didn't continue to ask about the man's identity. Instead, he quickly asked him a few questions about the anti-freeze care of fruit trees. He had learned a lot about this from Grandpa Zhao over the past few days. Song Ting's eyes lit up. He didn't think too much and answered casually. Whether he was an insider or not, he could tell from the way they spoke that they had their own way of using words. Many villagers working in orchards didn't know how to use professional terms. After confirming this, Zhao Yuan didn't waste any more time. He took out a universal knife from his pocket and untied the man and the other man. He asked Song Ting to wait here while he quickly ran back to the barbed wire fence. He briefly explained the situation to little Pomelo, and then little Pomelo ran back to call for help. Looking at the two men, they were tired, hungry, and in the cold and wet environment. They had been outside for too long, and it wasn't easy for them to walk. Zhao Yuan alone couldn't carry them. Little Pomelo had been to the orchard a few times, so she was familiar with it. She wasn't afraid of getting lost, so she quickly ran to call for help. Jingtan was helping Zhao Yuan to prevent any suspicious people around. What if the car robbers from last night appeared again? Zhao Yuan was just a high school student, and he couldn't handle those professional robbers. Not long after, people came from the orchard. They drove a small cart specially used by the orchard and opened the gate near the barbed wire fence. They carried the two injured men into the cart and went to the town hospital. Because of this incident, they originally planned to stay in the orchard until dinner, but now it seemed that they had to change their plans. When it was almost lunchtime, Grandpa Zhao directly took the children back on the donkey cart. Before getting on the cart, Jingtan saw the donkey wagging its tail and shouting beside Grandpa Zhao Yuan. It was different from the sound it made after teasing the cat in the morning. When it was in front of Grandpa Zhao Yuan, Jingtan felt that the donkey sounded a little coquettish. Donkeys also knew how to be coquettish. It was said that the two men who were rescued were quickly transferred from the town hospital to the best hospital in the county. This incident was quite big, and it was said that several leaders had ordered a strict investigation. It was rare for the Academy of Agricultural Sciences to take the initiative to send an expert to guide the anti-freezing and post-disaster recovery work of the fruit trees. They didn't expect to encounter such an incident. If this incident wasn't resolved, which expert would come to guide them in the future? There were many experts now, but it wasn't easy to find authentic experts. Why did they say authentic and good experts? Because there were many experts who were hired with high salaries or directly sent by the higher-ups. Not to mention how much real talent they had, not only did they have to put on airs and come to guide them casually, they also had to eat a feast, take a few red packets, and leave immediately. But this time, the one who came was quite famous in the industry, and he was also famous for being a good person. They didn't expect to encounter a black cart robbery as soon as they came here. It was simply F***ed up. Although many things were not explicitly said by the higher-ups, some smart people could infer some hidden information. Song Ting had such great achievements at such a young age, and he was also very famous in the industry. Other than his own ability, it could also be seen that there was someone behind him. Otherwise, the higher-ups wouldn't have taken action so quickly. Song Ting's parents were experts in this field of the older generation, and they had contributed a lot to the country. Even though they were old, they still hadn't gone offline. The old man had students all over the world, and he had high prestige in the circle. As an agricultural area with an experimental base, it was inevitable to deal with experts, and it would be inevitable in the future. Therefore, as long as one wasn't stupid, one would know that this matter had to be treated seriously and couldn't be careless at all. Although Song Ting said that there were no confidential documents in the lost things, it was better to find them as soon as possible. Perhaps the robbers didn't expect that the higher-ups would still take care of them when they were busy with disaster relief. They also didn't expect that Song Ting and the others would be discovered so quickly. The robbers planned to do a few more robberies in another town, but they didn't expect to be pulled out of their beds early in the morning on New Year's Eve and handcuffed. This wasn't the first or second time that this group of robbers had done this. They moved from place to place, and if it wasn't for the fact that the operation this time was swift and decisive, and that someone had taken the initiative to report them, they might not have been caught so quickly. As for the other person who was kidnapped, he was indeed from Jiao Pa's village. He had just turned 20 years old, and his reputation in the village wasn't very good. It wasn't that this person had done many things that harmed the villagers, but this person didn't go back to school after graduating from junior high. He wasn't interested in studying, and he didn't want to farm either. He always hung out with people outside and even got into fights before. But at the root of it, this person's character wasn't bad, and he had done things bravely for a just cause a few times. Later, under the suggestion of his family, he followed a few people in the village to work in a garment factory along the coast. He hadn't been home for 2 years, and when he came back this year, he encountered a snowstorm, which caused a lot of trouble. When he was almost back in the village, he was robbed and was beaten up. If it wasn't discovered in time, his life might have been in danger if he had waited for half a day. But now, he was much better. He was even joking around with his family in the hospital. But Zheng Tan didn't care about that. On New Year's Eve, Zheng Tan didn't sleep. He saw Grandpa Jiao buy some red packets yesterday. They were simple red packets with the words, New Year's gift bag, printed on them. He wrapped them up tonight and was waiting to give them to the children tomorrow. In fact, most of the time, the villagers were more casual and didn't wrap their gifts in red packets. They just gave it to the children directly from their pockets. But Grandpa Jiao was fashionable and specially bought some red packets. Zheng Tan took 2 red packets and put the money he brought with him into the red packets after little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan fell asleep. Zheng Tan knew that the 2 old people in the Jiao family always gave out 100 yuan as their New Year's money. This was the most red packets given in the village, followed by 50 yuan, 20 yuan, 10 yuan, and so on. According to the village's custom, Jiao Pa and Jiao Ma wouldn't give the children any red packets. So, Zheng Tan planned to give more red packets to Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo this time. This way, he would be the one who gave the most red packets this year. Thinking about it made him feel a little proud. Zheng Tan stuffed 500 yuan into each of the 2 red packets. This was the overtime pay he earned from Xiaogua. It was difficult to withdraw money from the card, so he could only use this. After folding the red packets, Zheng Tan thought for a while. He got some oil from the braised pork that he didn't finish tonight and smeared it on his hand. Then, he printed it on the back of the red packet. On the back of the red packet, there was a blurry oil stain in the shape of a cat's paw. This way, it wouldn't be mixed up with other people's. Chapter 326. Early in the morning, Jingtan heard the voices of Grandpa Jiao and Grandma Yuan. The elderly were used to waking up early, and they were even more diligent during the new year. No one slept in today. Little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan woke up very quickly. They still had a lot of work to do, and there would be guests at home. However, when Little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan woke up, their vision was still blurry. They were yawning when they smelled the smell of red braised pork. Breakfast was usually bland, so the two kids wondered if it was red braised pork for breakfast today. When they put on their clothes, they found a red envelope on the bedside. They picked it up and saw that it was obviously much thicker than usual. On the back, there was a greasy cat paw print with the smell of red braised pork. It was obvious who it belonged to. What surprised Jiao Yuan and Little Pomelo even more was the 500 yuan in the red envelope. Jingtan had a lot of private money. Jiao Yuan and Little Pomelo knew that. Jiao Yuan had even borrowed money from Jingtan. However, borrowing money was one thing, and receiving a red envelope was another. Jiao Yuan and Little Pomelo felt very strange and complicated. After all, in their eyes, Jingtan was much younger than them. Plus, there was 500 yuan in the red envelope. For a student, that was a lot of money. Jiao Yuan looked at the red envelope in his hand with a complicated expression. He actually wanted to yell F***ck to ease the impact of the red envelope, but obviously he couldn't. If he yelled, he would definitely be scolded by the four elders at home. He didn't want to be scolded on the first day of the new year. When Grandpa Jiao and Grandma Yuan saw Jiao Yuan and Little Pomelo coming out of their rooms, they smiled so widely that their eyes narrowed. Before the two kids said anything, they quickly took out the red envelope they had prepared and handed it to them. As Jingtan expected, Grandpa Jiao and Grandma Yuan gave out 100 yuan each. It was obvious from the thickness of the red envelopes. Jingtan couldn't help but feel proud. It didn't even give as much as it did. Ah, black charcoal, and yours. Grandpa Jiao and Grandma Yuan took out their red envelopes again. It was the same as in previous years. One of Jingtan's red envelopes contained pork jerky, and the other contained dried fish fillets. However, this year, Grandpa Jiao and Grandma Yuan gave him more red envelopes. In previous years, each red envelope only contained one bag, but this time, they gave him 2 bags. It was double the amount. There was a reason why Jingtan gave them double the amount of red envelopes. The biggest credit for what happened the day before yesterday was Jingtan. Although many people thought that the credit was given to Jiao Yuan and Little Pomelo, Grandpa Jiao and Grandma Yuan knew that the key person was Jingtan. Because of this, several village leaders came over to thank Grandpa Jiao. Even 2 town officials came over to talk to Grandpa Jiao. This gave Grandpa Jiao a lot of face. In the past, when he talked to Jiao Ma's old Master Gu often showed off. Grandpa Jiao's reputation depended on his face. Now, Grandpa Jiao felt that he could show off more the next time he met old Master Gu. Jiao Yuan and Little Pomelo did not tell Grandpa Jiao and Grandma Yuan about the huge, red envelopes that Jingtan gave them. They were afraid that it would scare them. Jiao Yuan pulled Jiao Pa into the room when Jiao Pa was free. With an expression that said, "What the F***ck?" Jiao Yuan told Jiao Pa about the red envelopes that Jingtan gave them. Jiao Pa pondered for a while, then said, "Then accept it." According to the age of cats and humans, black charcoal is already middle-aged. You are still a teenager. He probably thinks of you as his junior. Jiao Yuan said. You can't say that. This is black charcoal's appreciation. Besides, black charcoal is now a high-earning person who has worked for a few years. You are still a middle school student. His monthly salary is equivalent to half a year of your living expenses. Oh, and he made more money at the end of the year for the documentary. Jiao Yuan was speechless. That was a blow to him. There were many examples of cats from other families giving gifts, such as dead rats, incomplete grasshoppers, or other gadgets, etc. However, Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo were probably the only ones who had the experience of being given red envelopes by their own cats. Only they could understand the complicated and tangled feeling of being given red envelopes by their own cats. In the morning, when Jingtan came back from visiting the grave, he found a person sitting in the old house. It was the person named Song Ting. Grandpa Jiao was smiling like a chrysanthemum blooming. He called Song Ting, Expert Song, enthusiastically. Compared to when he was kidnapped, Song Ting looked much better now. The bruises at the corners of his eyes had faded a lot. Fortunately, the robbers did not directly take away their down jackets. Otherwise, they might not have been able to safely wait for rescue. Song Ting did not become depressed because of what had happened that day. He looked very energetic, and his complexion was much healthier. When Song Ting arrived, Jiao Pa had just left with Jiao Yuan and the others. Grandpa Jiao had said that it would not take long, so Song Ting had been sitting there waiting. Seeing Jiao Pa and the others come back, Song Ting's eyes flashed with a smile. His gaze first fell on Jingtan, who was wearing a vest, then on Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo. Finally, he looked at Jiao Pa and Jiao Ma behind them. After saying his New Year greetings, Song Ting reached into his pocket. Jingtan's heart inexplicably skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling about this. Sure enough, the next moment, he saw Song Ting take out 2 exquisite red packets from his pocket. They were twice the size of Jingtan's. Moreover, the red packets were very thick. Jiao Pa and Grandpa Jiao could not sit still when they saw this. They stood up and wanted to reject the red packets, but in the end, they could not resist Song Ting's insistence. They nodded and let the 2 children accept it. "Ah, Mr. Song, you are too polite." Grandpa Jiao felt a little pressured. Their village had never directly given 1,000 Chinese New Year's money. After Jiao Yuan received the red packets, he went back to his room to take a look. Then, he secretly gestured to Jiao Pa and Grandpa Jiao to let them know how much was in the red packets. In fact, many of Song Ting's relatives gave their children a lot of red packets. It was normal for them to give 1 or 2,000 Chinese New Year's red packets. However, this was also a process of exchange. No matter how much you gave your children, they would give your children in return. They would send red packets to each other. If they could not give their children any Chinese New Year's red packets, they would put it on other things and add it to the Chinese New Year's red packets. Song Ting did not like to do these so-called reciprocal gifts. In the past, it was his wife who prepared the red packets. However, now that his wife had gone abroad to study for a doctorate degree, the old man was not around to give advice. In the end, he decided to follow the traditional way of giving red packets between relatives and gave each child 1,000 Chinese New Year's red packets. Song Ting wanted to give more red packets. He was sincerely grateful to the 2 children. It was the first time in many years that he had encountered such a situation. Fortunately, the 2 children and the cat had helped him. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. He could have given more red packets, but in the end, Song Ting's friends stopped him. Generally, in the village, giving too much red packets would be too stressful. If they wanted to express their gratitude, they could do it in other ways. Therefore, this 1,000 Chinese New Year's red packet was the result of Song Ting's friend's persuasion. As for Jingtan, when Jiao Yuan went back to his room to look at the red packets, he hurriedly followed him. After seeing the red packets, he cursed in his heart. Along with the alpaca, he did not look at Song Ting in a good light. He had originally planned to give the highest red packet this year, but in less than 2 hours, his plan was broken. Jingtan was so depressed that he wanted to flip the table. At the same time, he was thinking of saving more cash next year to give the red packets. At that time, the red packets would be more exquisite and beautiful. Someone came to look for Grandpa Jiao, so he asked the Jiao Pa to stay here and talk to Mr. Song. After the Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo were called away by Jiao Ma, there was only the Jiao Pa and Song Ting left. Both of them were professors and were about the same age. Although they were engaged in different fields, they were not completely unrelated. They could also talk about common topics. Zheng Tan was sleepy listening to the profound academic topics. When Zheng Tan woke up after a short nap, the Jiao Pa and Song Ting talked about the loss of the orchard after the snow disaster. They even talked about donating. Zheng Tan had always been a simple-minded person. He had no interest in donating. He did not feel that he should give the money he earned to people he did not know. He also did not need to rely on donating money to earn his reputation. He would rather give it to the Jiao family and his friends. Therefore, when the Jiao Pa and Song Ting were talking about donating, Zheng Tan ran out and planned to take a walk outside. This year, the festive atmosphere of the spring festival in the village was not as strong. Because of the snow disaster, many people who made a living from the land were having a headache. The same was true for those who cultivated and raised crops. They were not optimistic and only wanted to try their best to recover some losses. There were also fewer children playing with firecrackers outside. Most of them were helping their families. The income of their families was directly linked to their future education and marriage. Therefore, they gave up playing with firecrackers and went to work. Zheng Tan squatted on a big rock beside the muddy road and looked at the villagers who were scurrying away. Two old men walked past the muddy road in front of him. They were talking and did not notice Zheng Tan. Listening to their conversation, it seemed that they were all donating money to a family. The family was not very well off. There were many problems with their tile-roofed house. It was not reliable and half of it collapsed during the snow disaster. Fortunately, they were fine. They barely survived the New Year's Eve with the help of some people. Otherwise, they would have been cold and hungry. Some people in the village wanted to raise money to help them repair their house. Otherwise, they would have no place to live. According to what the two elders said, their family conditions were not very good. They were just passable. Their son and daughter-in-law did not agree with donating money, but the elders thought that by doing some good deeds, they could accumulate more merit for their son and grandson. This way, they could live in peace in the future. Many people, the older they got, the more they believed in some mysterious things, such as doing good deeds and accumulating good deeds. It was said that good people would be rewarded and evil people would be punished. Zheng Tan used to be very disdainful of this, because in society, there were all kinds of people who cheated, killed, robbed, and stole. They lived in luxurious houses, drove luxury cars, and hooked up with high-quality girls. They lived better than anyone else. On the contrary, some good people lived miserable lives. The failure of education, the increasing pressure of life, and the increasing gap between the rich and the poor made people breathless. Doing good deeds and accumulating good deeds? No, they were more and more convinced that money was above all. As for the process, what did it matter? However, Zheng Tan suddenly began to feel confused again. He used to think, was it because he had done too many wicked things that he suddenly became a cat? There was a vegetable garden on the other side of the muddy road. Some of the vegetables had frozen to death, but some were still alive on the other side of the fence. Yellow flowers bloomed on the vegetable stalks. They swayed slightly with the wind, adding some vitality and hope to the garden. Zheng Tan looked at the vegetable stalks and gradually became entranced. Then, a donkey's face suddenly appeared, accompanied by a rather sudden donkey's honking. Zheng Tan was so shocked that he almost jumped up. The donkey turned its head and wagged its tail as it followed the fifth grandpa. Watching the man and donkey walk away, Zheng Tan stretched and ran back to the old house. Chapter 327. It was a bank card that the Jiao Pa had specially made for Zheng Tan. Zheng Tan's salary and remuneration were all deposited into it. Zheng Tan hadn't checked the amount of money in the bank for a long time. Last time, when the Jiao Pa checked online banking, Zheng Tan was very happy when he saw the amount of money in the bank account. Before the Jiao Pa went abroad, he gave the card to Zheng Tan. Now that he had been back for a long time, he didn't ask for it back. It was still hidden in the drawer of the cat tree by Zheng Tan. When he left Chuhua City this time, other than some cash and a card knife, the only thing he had in his vest was this bank card in case he needed it. From the beginning until now, the Jiao Pa hadn't used the money in the bank card much. The money in the bank card might not be less than the money in his own salary card. However, the Jiaopa didn't expect Jing Tan to bring the bank card out. What was the meaning of this? Putting the newspaper aside, the Jiaopa wasn't in a hurry to leave. He closed the door and dragged a chair over to sit down. Jing Tan pushed the bank card that his hand was stepping on in front of the Jiaopa. The Jiaopa was puzzled. You want to withdraw money? Jing Tan turned his head and looked around. He looked at the newspaper that the Jiaopa had just put on the table. The newspaper was brought over by Song Ting. It was a provincial newspaper. The headlines on it were about the snow disaster and disaster relief funds. The Jiaopa followed Jing Tan's gaze and looked at the newspaper. He raised his eyebrows and said with a strange expression, "You want to donate money?" Jing Tan nodded and pushed the card in front of the Jiaopa again. It was inconvenient to not be able to talk. Fortunately, the Jiaopa had already gotten used to this kind of communication. He had even pasted a small note on Jing Tan before. If other people knew about this, their jaws would probably drop. The Jiaopa was silent for a few seconds. Then he smiled and patted Jing Tan's head. He sighed and looked out of the window. He didn't say anything for a while. Jing Tan waited for a while. Seeing that the Jiaopa didn't say anything else, he was about to remind him. However, the Jiaopa turned his head and said, "Are you really going to donate money?" Jing Tan's eyes widened. How could this be fake? "Before I change my mind, take the card and donate it." It was rare for him to make a donation. Seeing the look in Jing Tan's eyes, the Jiaopa chuckled. "You little brat." When the Jiaopa and Song Ting had discussed the matter, they had already decided to donate money. Their village was also in the disaster area. There were also some villages further away on the other side of the mountain that were in worse conditions. Old Master Gu's place was also in the disaster area. In order to prevent any shenanigans, Song Ting had asked a few of his friends to participate in the donation and monitor it so that those who wanted to make money from the donations would give up early. It was precisely because of this that the Jiaopa felt at ease donating money. Otherwise, he wouldn't feel safe donating money. These days, there were also shenanigans in charity organizations. If Jing Tan wanted to donate money, he could only donate with the Jiao family. He couldn't use another name. Jing Tan didn't care about this. Did he want everyone to know that he was the one who donated the money? Someone would definitely think about it. Besides, Jing Tan didn't have such noble sentiments. He only donated for peace of mind. After all, when a completely normal person suddenly turned into a cat and returned to the past, Jing Tan felt uneasy just thinking about it. When he was sad, he would stare at his cat paws that were completely different from a human's. As for the donation, it didn't matter if other people knew about it or not. If it was really like what the old people said, that doing good deeds and accumulating good karma would bring about good karma, then when would he be able to return to his human form? Jing Tan thought optimistically. This was also what Jing Tan had been thinking about when the Jiaopa came in just now. "How much do you want to donate?" the Jiaopa asked again. Although the Jiaopa had a plan in mind, he wanted to know Jing Tan's opinion. When he asked, he raised his hand and took a large calculator from the table. He turned on the power switch and put it in front of Jing Tan. This was the kind that the Grandpa Jiao and Grandma often used. When they bought it for the convenience of the two old people. It was the type with the big buttons that could be seen clearly. Jing Tan stared at the calculator in front of him and raised his hand to press the button on the calculator. Normally, donations were in round numbers, so Jing Tan pressed 1, then moved to the 0 button and planned to press 4 zeros. However, when he pressed the button, Jing Tan's mind wandered. He was still thinking about something when he suddenly remembered that there seemed to be a lot of things happening in the past year, especially the incident in May. After pressing the button, Jing Tan retracted his hand and realized that he had pressed something wrong. He raised his head and looked at the display on the calculator. Sure enough, there was an extra 0. Jing Tan was speechless. It really was a mistake. Earlier, he had seen a donation news article in the newspaper. Many celebrities had donated 10 to 20,000 yuan on the spot. He had thought that it would be enough if he donated 10,000 yuan. However, when he was pressing the button, his mind suddenly went blank. He was not focused and accidentally pressed an extra button. Before Jing Tan could regret, the Jiaopa had already taken the calculator and looked at it. Seeing the 100,000 on the monitor, Father Jiao was surprised, which was rare. He knew that before the new year, when his cat was working at the pet center, the overtime pay was only 50 yuan. He had to get 100 yuan. Xiaogua had joked about it several times when he called him. He did not expect this guy to be so generous. Compared to corporate donations, private donations were much less, especially from ordinary people. 100,000 yuan was a huge sum of money for many people. For this large-scale snow disaster, Jing Tan's donation was even more than some of the celebrities' donations listed in the newspaper. Jing Tan had a lot of money in his card. In the past, because of him, Yi Hao had transferred a lot of money. This amount of money still accounted for the majority of the total amount. In the past few years, because of various reasons, Yi Hao had also transferred a lot of money. Every time, Yi Hao had been very generous. Are you really going to donate this much? I was going to donate 100,000 yuan. I didn't expect you to do the same, said the Jiaopa, thinking about the New Year's money that the Jiao Yuan had told him. The Jiaopa smiled and shook his head again. His cat was really. Jing Tan hesitated for a moment. However, when he thought about the money in his card, he decided that he would just donate 100,000 yuan. He would not change it. Pushing the card back to the Jiaopa, Jing Tan jumped off the table and left. A few days later, Song Ting came again. The young man who had been kidnapped with him last time was discharged from the hospital today. He asked the driver to send the young man over. After all, the young man had helped a lot when they were kidnapped. This time, the young man had almost lost his life. After Song Ting learned about the young man's family situation, he recommended a food processing factory along the coast to let the young man work there when he recovered. The young man's family was very happy about the good pay. Taking advantage of this time, Song Ting also chatted with the Jiaopa and brought over the relevant donation certificate. The Jiaopa meant that the 200,000 yuan was a family donation. When he told Song Ting about it, he specifically said, "The money that my cat earns is also included in the donation." Song Ting smiled. He only thought that the Jiaopa was joking. However, he did have a good impression of Jing Tan. If it were not for Jing Tan, he did not know when he would have been discovered. In addition, on Yuan Ziyi's side, the Jiaopa would also participate in the company's donation. He did not only donate this amount of money. Because of the disaster in his hometown, he also experienced a lot this time. Moreover, Yuan Ziyi also wanted the company to make a good impression in front of the public. While the Jiaopa was chatting with Song Ting, Jing Tan looked outside. The car that sent Song Ting here was a private car with a driver. However, the driver was not only a driver, but also a bodyguard. He was afraid that something would happen to Song Ting on the way. However, from Song Ting's words, it could be seen that he had a good impression of this village. He had said a lot of good things about this village. The young man's surname was also Jiao. However, he was also related to the Jiaopa. Most of the people in this village had the same surname, and some families had the same surname. This was also the reason why the Jiaopa, who was also surnamed Jiao, addressed the donkey cart driver as fifth uncle instead of fifth uncle. However, when it came to the Jiao Yuan's generation, it was much simpler to address people as uncle or grandfather. Jing Tan and the others would not be staying here to celebrate the Lantern Festival. Little Pomelo and the Jiao Yuan still had to go back to report. Before that, the Jiaopa's work had to start in advance. Many graduate students would return to school around the 10th of the first lunar month, especially those who were busy with more research projects. The winter break was only a week or two away. The school's official website said nothing. This was an internal rule that would not be announced publicly. On the day they returned to Chuhua City, Song Ting was at a fruit tree experimental base not far from here. When he heard that the Jiaopa and the others were leaving, he ran over to see them off and brought some fruits. What made Jing Tan angry was that when fifth grandpa led the donkey over, the donkey even leaned in front of the car and made a few strange noises at Jingtan. Its mouth was even moving, and its eyes were slightly narrowed, as if it was mocking Jingtan. The day before, when Jingtan was squatting on a tree and enjoying the winter scenery of the countryside, Fifth Grandpa led the donkey past. When it saw Jingtan, the donkey walked under the tree and pooped in the direction of the tree trunk. It pooped right under the branch that Jingtan was lying on. After it pooped, it looked at Jingtan. Its long ears twitched, and it wagged its tail and followed Fifth Grandpa away. Now that the donkey was acting like this again, Jingtan was so angry that he wanted to rush up and slap the donkey's face a few times. If little Pomelo wasn't holding him, Jingtan would have already slapped it. Looking at the proud donkey, Jingtan gritted his teeth. "Just you wait, when I come back for the new year next year, I'll beat you to death." Jingtan still had a red packet in his vest. He took it from Grandpa Jiao. Jingtan didn't have much money on hand now, so he planned to give another one to Zhuo Xiaomao when he went back. In fact, Jingtan also wanted to give one to Little Jiao, but after considering the blind old man behind Little Jiao, he decided against it. It would be troublesome if it attracted too much attention. Anyway, little Pomelo would definitely bring a lot of food for that girl. After the 15th day of the first lunar month, the primary and secondary schools all started school. The kindergarten also opened its doors as the parents started work. Jingtan already had a plan for Zhuo Xiaomao's class. He found an outdoor class time. Jingtan put on a black vest, put the red packet in, and ran to the kindergarten. Just like before, after seeing Jingtan, Zhuo Xiaomao went over. The children in the class were used to it and didn't have much curiosity. "Brother Hey, Happy New Year." Zhuo Xiaomao ran over happily. It was obvious that this child was in a good mood. Jingtan turned sideways to Zhuo Xiaomao and nodded at the zipper of the vest's pocket, indicating for Zhuo Xiaomao to open it. Zhuo Xiaomao's eyes lit up. She quickly put the crayons in her hand into her pocket, then opened the zipper of the vest and took out the red packet inside. Seeing the red packet with the words, "New Year's gift package," Zhuo Xiaomao smiled so widely that her eyes narrowed. She knew these 3 words. She had also received this kind of red packet during the New Year. Just as Zhuo Xiaochao was enjoying herself, Jingtan heard a commotion. She turned around and saw a grayish-black figure rolling out from the bushes after a few meows that signified a cat's battle mode.